This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome once again to another Sunrise Safari. This time with myself, Steve Falkenrich, coming to you live from Djuma Private Game Reserve in South Africa, where there is an early light here in the morning. It was the darkness of the Mara a few weeks ago, and now we are down in a very nice 23 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. We have found some kudu this morning, who are my first kudu in some months now. If you have not been watching, I've been in the Mara for some time. Now back down, very excited to be out in Djuma once again. Davisito is on camera with me this morning. Very excited to be out in the bush again, once again, down here in Djuma, where it is a little bit greener than I saw it a few months ago, but the kudu are looking in quite a bad state. Hello everybody, thank you for the welcomes back, and please don't forget this is interactive and you're welcome to send your questions, comments to #SafariLive or drop them on the YouTube chat stream. Remember to try and keep them relevant and use the all-important @FC to keep your questions coming through. Well, we'd love to hear from you. This morning I'm just going to touch base once again with this lovely area and see what has transpired since I've been away. I've had my head out the door for the last 10 minutes, looking deliberately at the ground for some fresh tracks. Haven't done any tracking in some time, so I'm super excited to be doing so. But let us know what you'd like to talk about on your end, and hopefully we can facilitate that. Well, it is looking a bit greener than it did when I left here in September. Only a few leaves on the trees, so the kudu are looking a little bit scrawny, and they're hoping that the nutrients provided by the new growth on these trees will give them back the fitness that they require. For months and months and months, the kudu were just basically surviving off dead leaves. There's a youngster who's managed to survive a year and is looking in okay condition, considering. Definitely building up condition now. You see the ground, the grass is still very, very dry. We are desperate for rainfall. But the spring and summer light has provided the trees with their leaves. Cal6, most certainly I will be getting back involved in all the trees and segments that we can over the coming weeks. Mondays or Tuesdays, you know how it works. It can either be one of those days. Most certainly, I'm very excited to be back. I'll probably be walking tomorrow or this afternoon, so it'll be nice to be out on foot again. Beautiful big ears. But they are looking very, very drab in colour. The coat will definitely regenerate a little bit after a few months of feeding, but as with any weight loss program, if you lose condition, it takes some time to generate it back again, and slowly but surely this kudu will be looking for the best and tastiest leaves. But it's not only me out this morning. Sydney is out on bushwalk, and he would like to say good morning.
I'm trying to see if we can find something very interesting behind this tree. A very, very good morning, and most of all, welcome to the beginning of my guided walk. I am Sydney Niconico, and I'm traveling with Craig, who is my camera operator this morning. We are going to try by all means to get you see the tiny little interesting animals. If we come across the big animals, consider it a bonus. For in case if you need our attention, you can follow us on Twitter, #SafariLive. You can also follow us on YouTube chat stream. Here I've got this dead tree. Yeah, something is happening here. So this dead tree is not like it's unattended. You can see here there is something dry, and here is looking very wet. This is telling you that the decomposers, termites, already has started doing something about this. When the tree is dead, the termites, they will come and do something about that, because now is the time for them to take back all the nutrients to the soil in order to prepare the soil for the next seed's germination. So this is a very hard wood. But if you come here, I can promise you, in a very short space, the termites are going to eat from inside. You can see now that everything is covered. Reason for them to do this is that it's very hot, and some of these termites are so very much sensitive to the sun. So they want to execute their responsibilities when they are covered inside. They don't do mud bath. They can be able to control nicely the body temperature from just covering the outer layers with the soil. And it helps them as well to avoid the predators, because some of the predators, more or less of the same size, such as the ants, can easily come and predate them. And we mustn't forget birds as well. They prey on them as well. The black mamba, let me show you something. If you look at the weather now, it is cloudy at the moment. It's getting overcast. I'm not too sure if maybe this will be associated with cold weather. And cold weather mostly restricts the activities of a lot of reptiles. So they become inactive. Let's hope it doesn't get cold so that we can see some of those kind of interesting animals. I know in the bush, it's always unpredictable. We might go now looking for the leopards and come across the black mamba. So it's always on the list. The season is right for the black mambas. I was very lucky yesterday. That was my first black mamba here in Djuma. And I'm still very much happy about that sighting. It was one of my good sightings. So now here, if you check, animals are eating these grasses here. Oh, yeah, look here. Something is happening. Look, these are the termites. Look at what these termites are doing. This is what is called a teamwork. You see, they're helping each other in order to move their branches there. They might be dragging that branches to the tunnel. You can see this one branch already is there. So they are designing this tunnel all the way to that side. And next to it, look at this, their droppings. They don't want to put their droppings inside. So it means they might have been doing this during the night, because during the day when it's hot, they avoid that. So if you look at these termites, if you look at them, their bodies, they are much more light, and inside is full of water. When you see that the termites are full of water in their back, it's like a bucky sack. You see those big trucks that normally collects water for firefighting purposes. These are the ants. These are the termites, not the ants. These are the termites which are specifically called the wakers. Workers, they've got a huge responsibility of building, constructing these colonies. So they always got water in order to build. All these moisture that we are seeing here on this line, it has been moisturized by the water which is coming from the abdomen. So not all the water is coming from underground. So they do carry water themselves. Oh, I am jealous now. Steve has got my favorite animal.
Well, favorite animal indeed. What is it being back in Djuma? We've got to get down and dirty in the poo, as Ralph would like to say. Ralph really did enjoy his poo. But we have found ourselves a dung beetle enjoying the spoils of summer, gorging on some rhino dung. We are in a white rhino midden. You can't clearly see this dung beetle. Here he is, right over here. Beautiful, Davy. And he is busy rolling a ball. This time of year you'll find many dung beetles around. You can probably see a number of insects flying around in the dung as well. This is a time of plenty for the dung beetles, which are mainly active in the summertime. Sydney was showing you some termites there, which will do most of the digestion and breakdown of organic material in the wintertime. Most dung beetles, especially this individual, won't be around in the winter months. They will be growing with inside of dung balls that their very studious mums and dads have created for them. So a very nice pile of dung over here. And, well, it is still quite wet. And if I show it to you here, it is quite green in colour. And there is the bits and pieces of grass inside, which make it very easy to identify as rhino dung. You could confuse this with elephant this time of year, except elephant will never do it in a pile like this. It makes it very easy from a track and sign point of view, and peachy. Very, very nice smell. Communication hotspot right over here. Facebook of the bush. The white rhino male has walked through. He has scratched his feet. As you could probably see, he's walked in over here, and he's taken his two back feet and he's scratched them backwards like that as he's defecated, covering the back of his feet with the smell of the dung, which is now all over my hands. And then he's walked in that direction, scratching and scraping as he goes to let all the other males know this is my spot. And well, these smells are attracting dung beetles from far and wide, so there could be hundreds of them living inside at any one given time. So very nice sort of organic material hotspot, and a very nice place for dung beetles to socialize. Well, let's continue on. I got off the vehicle and did a segment. I'm very excited about that. Nice to be back in Djuma. Kathy, dung beetles don't bite actually. They've got a very strong face in front. Maybe I don't want to grab him for you because he's busy doing some work, but they've got this very sort of strong shovel-like appendage to the front of their face, which helps him with digging and burying the balls, but they don't bite. Just small little mouth parts, a typical insect sort of mouth part that they use for sort of pushing the ball together, and this shovel-like thing on the front of the nose, which they can flick sometimes, and also the back of their legs they got these sort of jagged bits on them which help them to roll their balls and get purchase. And if you do hold the dung beetle in your hand, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable the first time because they're so powerful, but they don't bite and they're not out to hurt you. A friend of mine, though, did get a black eye once. He was driving along, probably a little bit faster than I was, and a dung beetle was honing in on the pile and hit him square in the eye. So that will hurt, but was not a deliberate attempt on the dung beetle's part to cripple my friend. One of the reasons why eyewear in the summer months is quite important. Child of the universe, you want to know if there's other animals larger than insects that eat rhino dung? Well, in fact, you will find guinea fowl and francolin, a lot of the small little galliform species that move around, that not necessarily feeding on the dung itself. They might be feeding on grass seeds that might be inside there. They might be feeding on any larvae, insect larvae, fly larvae, beetle larvae that might be generating inside. And sometimes guinea fowl, in the case, will actually be feeding on the elephant dung or on the rhino dung itself, because they do quite enjoy sort of fermenting green grassy material. Sorry, folks. I'll be back. Is that better, doggy? We're having a little bit of an audio issue here, Emma. Sorry.
Apologies for the inconveniences due to the poor network access. I am still here enjoying the tiny little insects. Look at that. They are very much busy. Hey, something is happening here. And these are my favorite termites. I know a lot of people, they do have a confusion between the termites as well as the ants. So today, nice and clear, I've got a sighting. If you look at these ones, you will see that the body structure, they don't have a waist. You can't see a waist like an ant. But if you look at the ant here on the waist, you will see that they've got a very thin waist and a big stomach after the waist. So this is the termites. And I saw some ants coming much closer here. I can see here's the ants. Can you see that? Here is the ants. They're trying to come closer. And as the ants are coming closer, these workers' termites on a convoy, they walk very fast. And it seems very difficult for the ants to predate them. But I know these ants, they must be looking for a chance. So these termites, they do have the compound eyes. Termites, if you can check, for them to find each other and for them to find a way, they are relying on a chemical which is secreted in the name of a pheromone. A pheromone, when is when it's left on the ground, the other ones will simply follow the trail. It's what we are seeing now. You can see that signal has been sent here. You see, they're all going back very quickly because they have picked the presence of the ants. I can see they're all going back now all the way from where they've been. Look. They are very fast, they are going back. So this is how they communicate. And they also use their antennae to communicate. And all of them are just going one way. None of them is going to the other side. So maybe now is when the ants will have a chance to catch those who are at the back. Let's just see what is going to happen here. But everything is happening very quickly. Look, all of them are going in here. So it means in here there's quite a lot at the moment. So the workers, normally they look like larvas. The color is so milky every time because these workers, not permanently, they will remain like this. Sometimes they change to become something. When the colony is threatened, you find the soldiers going back to become workers. Interesting. I have seen a queen termite a lot. And you know, what you must remember is that the queen, we have all seen it. It's just that when seeing them, we don't realize that these are going to be the future queens. The queen and the kings are those termites you are seeing every day after heavy rains and during the rain flying. They are called reproductives. They are also termed allets. Those allets, one of them, if they survive away from danger, is going to become a king, whereas the other one is going to become a queen. So it's just that when they are in the nest, they are feeding on a specific special diet. So because of the special diet, their body size grows much bigger than the rest. And that is how you can simply distinguish between the queen, the king, and the rest of the termites in the colony. So a queen normally stays in a royal chamber. So they stay inside in a royal chamber. So that is something very, very interesting. They are very much special. But what I like about the queen is that the queen can be able to regulate the breeding activities inside. If the queen don't want too much competition, she can just give the rest of the workers a certain chemical for them to eat, which is going to prevent them from breeding. So now I am going to carry on and see if we can find something very interesting. But while doing that, let's now cross over to the Masai Mara where Tristan is waiting.
Well, from termites that are busy and moving about to buffalo that, I suppose, for a buffalo, are busy as well. They're busy grazing their way slowly along with a bit of mist in the background, and a few ellies that are also joining them somewhere in amongst all of them. Now, good morning from East Africa. My name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Archie this morning, and it is a very warm welcome to this side of the world. It's lovely to have you guys. 2018. I'll be going on leave today, which means that I'll only be back on drive again next year, which is an interesting kind of thought. It's funny, actually, I was thinking about it yesterday and then thinking that I had been probably this year on safari for about 340 to 350 days of this year. I haven't really spent much time kind of anywhere else, really. I've been in national parks all over Africa, which has been quite nice. So it's going to be a nice change this holiday. We're heading down to my parents at the coast, which will be very, very pleasant. It'll be nice to see Ali again because I haven't seen her since I got up here, which is about almost 3 weeks now. So it'll be nice to catch up with her and everything will be good. So it's going to be a nice leave, but hopefully it'll be an epic morning and we'll get spoiled by the Mara one more time. It's really given us quite a bit over the last few days, and so hopefully one more spoiling as we kind of end up meandering our way through the bush. Hopefully also we don't get rained on like we did yesterday. Somehow yesterday I was speaking to Archie because he was with David. He was telling me that they didn't get any rain and we got pelted all afternoon. Manu and I, it felt like the rain was just following us wherever we went because we'd go to where it was light and then all of a sudden there would be rain there. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I think what we're going to do though is we're going to head off. I want to try and just pop in at the Batty at Foxden one more time, see if there's anything happening there.
And then from there we'll meander our way probably southwards, although the problem is that the south got absolutely hammered last night by rain, so we'll see. I mean, it's very wet down there when we started to head back home, but we'll see how we go. I'm going to just kind of see and scratch, and maybe, just maybe, we get lucky with something or other. That's the idea anyway. Now, I've had also a horrible morning. Pixel, you say there's just such beautiful scenery. I know the Mara is incredible when it comes to scenery. It's just one of those kind of places where you constantly kind of looking at things and thinking, wow, that's beautiful. So it's a very, very special place in that regard. The scenery here is quite spectacular because you've either got open plains with these trees that are kind of dotted along, or you've got the escarpment, or you've got forest, you've got the river. So it's got a lot of different areas. We've also got the open sections with the Inselbergs. So, you know, it's quite diverse in many respects, and a lot of epic ways to kind of spend your day and please your eye, effectively. But I was saying that I've had a terrible start to my day. It's almost as if the universe is saying it's time to go on leave. This morning we've had, I don't know how many different issues. So I've had issues with my microphone, issues with Kitu not wanting to start. For some reason the battery terminal keeps, well, the connection to the battery terminal just keeps jumping off, and we've tried tightening it and it doesn't want to stay on. So we've had that. We've had radios that don't want to work. It's all been happening today, so hopefully that's the end of it for one day. Always don't like when we're having a bit of a bad luck run when you've got to fly the same day. Hopefully we don't get any issues there, so we'll see how it goes. But luckily I'm only flying out much later today, which is quite nice. So normally we kind of fly out of the Mara at around 11, and then it's a long wait in Nairobi, because normally our flights are at night back to South Africa. And so luckily I'm only flying out of here at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, so I'll only be in Nairobi for about 3 hours as opposed to 8 or 9, which would have been soul destroying in many respects. Nairobi's a great place, but not if you're just there for a few hours and need to go to the airport. The airport at Nairobi has not got much entertainment, if I'm honest. It's a very, very interesting way that they've built it, and there's very few places that you can actually just go and sit and relax and wait, so, or any sort of food places or anything like that. It's a bit of a tricky one, so, you know, at least don't have to spend too much time in Nairobi. And then from Nairobi it's to Rwanda, from Rwanda to South Africa, where I'll land at a delightful 2:10 a.m, which will be very pleasant, and then I sit at the airport that side until 5 o'clock in the morning when I will catch a flight down to the coast. So long day of travel ahead. Anyway, I'm going to forget about that. I'm going to enjoy my last morning in the Mara instead, and while we do that, let's send you back to Steve, who I'm sure had a wonderful leave, and it's good to have him back on drive.
Enjoy your last moments there, Tristan. It is such a different world. Suddenly being back down here versus up in the Mara, what a different experience. And I do indeed understand when Tristan says the long journey home. It can be quite a day ahead of him. He'll only be arriving back in South Africa, no doubt, early hours of tomorrow morning. Poor thing. We've all done it. But it is indeed wonderful to be back down here in Djuma, where, well, the sun was shining when we went out. The hours are just so amazing. The seasonal shift that we have between here through the seasons. The winter months, it's dark, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, it's still dark, whereas by 4:30 already here in summer, it's light. It's that whole shift around really makes a huge difference to the day, to be honest. When you're up this early, you're back earlier, and you've got a lot more time in the day to melt, because it gets very hot. Dave and I were just talking about doing some training today. And well, if you train out here, you've got to train early in the morning, or you just lose too much body fat, which I suppose is the point. It's very hot, but we are blessed. We have a swimming pool, which was used by many of our staff yesterday, including myself. A little bit of hot yoga, Bikram yoga, definitely. So anyway, folks, I'm just enjoying bumbling around. The car seems to be driving itself. It's nice to be back. Last time I was here, there wasn't a leaf on the trees. This was all brown and grey and dead, desolate looking. And it's amazing how quickly it does turn around. I know we've had a very low amount of rainfall, so the grasses are requiring lots of rain still. The trees benefit, of course, because they've got access to the water table. The grasses are needing some rainfall to be able to come back and provide all the grazing. So I doubt we're going to see too many of the grazing animals around. But nice to just be back reevaluating the situation and see what's going on. It's nice to see so many of the trees in leaf and some flowers coming out. No doubt over the coming weeks we're going to be able to really delve back into the identification of a lot of these plants, because, well, during the winter months it's very tricky to identify trees. You have to have a good understanding of what it is. So having all the trainees on site, they are learning about all of the different trees now, seeing as they have got some leaves. And, well, not only are you able to identify trees with leaves, sometimes there's little critters sitting on them as well.
There is something here. It's looking very beautiful and very much relaxed. It's just that I don't want to disturb this tree at all. As I can see that these caterpillars are very much relaxed and nicely camouflaged. Look at that. So you can see that they have just been eating. You can see the leaf has been taken, and the other side of this leaf is taken completely. And some of the leaves here, you can see the tree is trimmed already. So these insects are eating all these leaves. And it's not one. At the moment I'm seeing one, and there's another big one there in the middle. So now I want to talk about what led us to find these caterpillars. They are so camouflaged, but if you look here on the ground, we have got these dark black spots. These dark black spots on the ground is the frass. This is the droppings deposited by those caterpillars on top. So you can see that in order to see this, you must also have to check on the ground at the base of the plant, because that is where you're going to find evidence which will lead you to see the animal. Look, there's even another one here right in front of me, but I was battling to see it. I only saw it now. So these kind of caterpillars suddenly are also going to become food for some of the birds. So when they come here, they find them, they are going to eat them. So at the end, mostly through different stages of instars, they are going to become some of the moth. You will see them in the form of the butterflies. So this is also how the mopani worms, they start from here, and then they are going to pass through different stages of instars, or the different stages of metamorphosis. Meta means change, morph means shape. It means it's an insect that has gone through the different stages in order to become an adult. So when it's going through these different stages of instars, it allows the body to change, and it allows the body to grow. So going through the stages of instars allows the bodies to grow. Otherwise, also the animals with the exoskeletons, those that normally leave out the skin and get the new skin after every season, they do that in order the body size. If they don't do that, the body size is going to battle to grow. I didn't get that question very nicely. So the caterpillars, most of them, they become the moths. Some of them, they become the butterflies. So there's quite a very big confusion between the butterflies and the moth. But the moth, mostly we see them during the dark. So during the breeding season of these moths and butterflies. You will see they fly from the southern side going towards the northern side. If you see the butterflies moving from south to north, you must know that it means it's during the breeding season. Reason for them to go towards north is that mostly the northern side is consisted of high elevations, and for them to choose each other for breeding, they prefer to choose each other high up on top of the mountains. And with the purpose that the males who cannot get to the top, it means they are not suitable for breeding. So these weddings, the groom and the bride, they choose each other high up on top of the mountains. I thought I saw something there, but I can see it was just a trek, an old trek for the wildebeest. Now let's cross over to Tristan, who is just driving at the moment.
I am indeed, Sydney. I'm driving through a very, very misty Mara at this stage of the game. Can't really see very much at all. We've got about, let's say, maybe 30 meters visibility at the moment as to where we can actually see. The left side is slightly better than the right. The right side is towards the marsh, and that's why it's so misty over that side, and it's very tricky to actually see much. But if we do see anything, it's going to be quite spectacular in this mist. It's going to be quite eerie and beautiful, so I'm hoping that that's what's going to happen. I also think our little bat-eared foxes might be all cuddled up together and kind of sitting in this mist, so it'll be nice to go and see them while it is still a little bit misty like this. But the sun is going to come up shortly, and once that happens, well, then we're going to lose the mist pretty fast. MGR, you say it's very spooky out here. Yes, it is spooky a little bit. It's gotten a bit lighter when it's still quite dark and misty. That's when it's kind of at its worst. And the problem with mist and darkness is that you can't see anything, and then you come across things like rhinos and hippos and elephants, and you come across them a lot faster, or even vehicles like the one that is coming along towards me at this stage. In fact, there's two of them. I hope they haven't disturbed our little bat-eared foxies and that they haven't gone inside because of the vehicles that have gone past. So these are the guys for the balloon. They go out at this time, and they're basically called the chasers. So they drive along and will slowly work out where the balloon is going to head. And talking about the balloon, there it is with an ostrich at the moment. So it's going to go ostrich underneath, balloon on top. So they basically calculate, okay, the balloon is moving in this direction. That means that we need it to, we need to kind of what's the word for it, go in that certain way, and then they'll eventually kind of catch up with the balloon to be able to then fold it all up and figure out exactly where it needs to kind of be, and then transport it back. There's our ostrich in the mist, though. He's taking it very kind of easy. I would imagine as an ostrich you should take it easy in the mist, because otherwise it's going to be a little tricky in order to stay safe with lots and lots of predators around. Things can be a bit tricky, so better to kind of sit still and watch. What you can also see is that there's the sun. It's just going to start coming up, and so we'll get a nice orange mist that's going to come through just now. So much like yesterday, where we had that kind of moment where it was very misty, and then the sun came up and everything kind of settled down. Now actually, I have a story to tell all of you about last night. So last night, Manu and I were on our way home, and we were slowly bumbling back, just talking nonsense and basically going down the road and thinking to ourselves, well, not really much has happened in our afternoon. We got a bit hammered by rain, and not really kind of the things that we wanted to happen have happened. And so we're slowly bumbling along, and the next thing we come across the scene in the road that can only be described as quite disturbing. So essentially what had happened was there were two hippos in the road, right? Now the one hippo was lying with its back legs flat out and its front legs forward, and it was at that stage just lying there looking very sad. And there was the other hippo, had it by its back and has bitten it and was just shaking it, and there was blood everywhere. And this poor hippo was looking very, very worse for wear. By the time it finished, when we kind of got there, we obviously disturbed things a little bit because we didn't obviously know that they were fighting. We only saw them quite close. But I think the time that kind of everything had sort of settled down, there was one hippo that was lying around that you couldn't really tell its skin from blood. There was just blood everywhere, blood coming out of its eyes, blood all over its face, its whole back, its legs. It had a huge gash about that long where you could actually see all the muscle structure inside. It was quite hectic. And so this poor hippo looked really bad. Then the other one just left, and this hippo then just sat there for a while and then got up and walked off as well. So I actually want to go and see if we can maybe find that hippo, because that hippo is not going to be in good shape at all. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's maybe even succumbed to those injuries, because at one point it was just literally lying there and the other one was just mangling it, basically. It was horrible actually to watch, but the noise was quite incredible. I'm going to stop here again just because it is seriously beautiful to our right hand side. Now I believe a lot of you are saying, oh my goodness, it was hectic, it was eerie as all hell, because it was dark. And so when Manu was trying to film some stuff, because we had completely powered down, disconnected the camera, everything, we were literally on our way home, and then Manu had to try get everything back up and running, and obviously with infrared we don't have any lights on, so we were sitting there in the complete dark, and all you can hear is these hippos going at it and making this incredible sound. And then, you know, you put the lights on, there's just blood everywhere. In fact, we should actually go to where it was in the road and see if we can see all the blood and things like that. It'll be quite interesting, so we'll head that way. It's on the river road, so that's the plan, is to head that way anyway and see. There goes the balloon past. A very, very pretty sunrise. Those people are going to have a nice balloon ride today. They're going to get a very, very, very pretty sunrise and lots of mist. So, Joy, it's a territorial fight. It's a fight between two males. They've bumped into each other. They've probably don't really want each other in their space, and it probably started at the river, because we were right up against the river, and maybe one wandered towards a pool that this territorial male has decided, no, this is mine, you can't come here, and that's how it started. And then once they start going at one another, then, well, it just becomes kind of bloodlust in many respects. They get so amped up and adrenaline pumps that they start to go at each other, and it's the hippos fighting has got to be one of the most insane things to watch, just from an aggression and power and sort of, I don't know what the word is, traumatic kind of view. You've got these two massive animals, and they just go at it, and they hit each other and they bite each other, and you hear lots of noise, and they defecate everywhere. It's quite a thing, really. Steve had a great hippo sort of fight sighting at Chitwa a few months ago, but luckily that one ended up being very sort of, what would the word be, it ended up well. I mean, there wasn't too much blood, and they kind of fought, and it was quite evenly matched. This one last night, I just felt so sorry for this poor thing. It looked as though it was just getting absolutely hammered, and it had lost the will to fight back. It was just literally sitting with its head down, just getting bitten and taking it, and it was horrible. Shame. I felt very bad for this little hippo, and I suppose in a way us being there actually saved that hippo's life in some respects, because I think it was about to get absolutely mangled on the road, and then when we arrived they got a bit of a fright and moved off. Child of the universe? I don't think so. I mean, that hippo was still going strong at that point. It was still, I mean, while it had lost the will to fight, it was still on its feet, and it was still able to kind of walk, and therefore I doubt that lions and hyenas would try. I think that hippo would still have the adrenaline and the ability to fight back. But what will happen is that you will have seen that crocodiles might be an issue for that hippo. If it loses a lot of blood and it goes back into the water, and that blood drifts, and it becomes, you know, an individual that almost attracts crocodiles' attention in its weakened state, you might find some of the big crocs try their luck. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out. Like I said, I'll head back in that direction, and we'll have a little look around and see what we can find. What was also super weird about the whole experience was we watched this whole thing happen, and then they went into a thicket, which I'll show you a little bit later, the size of the thicket, and it wasn't very large at all. This little thicket was kind of there, and these hippos went into the thicket, and we could shine our lights and we could see all the holes in the thicket, but we could, for the life of us, could not find those hippos again. Both of them just vanished in the space of about 2 seconds, gone. And it looked like they went through the thicket, but on the other side, we checked, we looked, we couldn't see anything. And so I don't know where they disappeared to, but it looked as though the two kind of just left, gone. So I don't know where they went. Now, Kaz, do females fight? Females will fight if they are protecting their babies, but generally no. I don't think we're going to have any luck with the bat-eared foxes. The tractor is just going straight past there now, which is delightful. I don't know, it's frustrating when there's so many cars on this road. It's just a bad day we've picked to come here, and we were just slightly too late getting here. It's the bat-eared foxes, I think, with all of the commotion with tractors and cars, I don't think they're going to be... Well, maybe. No, they're all running into the den, unfortunately. Let's just turn off from here, because two of them are about to go down into the den. So I thought this might be the case, is when they get too many vehicles, then they get frustrated, well, not frustrated, but they get nervous, and they go down, and we don't get to see them too much. But there's the back of one. I watched two already go down, and then this is one that's kind of on the edge, so I'm hoping it will come back from the brink and not go down there. Come on, come back out for us. There we go. That's cool. So there's one that's just sitting, and the other one's out and about as well, which is nice. It's actually nice to see them standing for a change. Oh yes, no, we're going to curl up now and go back to sleep. Very cool little animals. So let's go forward now that they've settled down, and it'll be better if we can get a little bit further forward. So back to the female hippos, is that they'll definitely fight for their young ones, but they'll try and avoid fighting with males, because males are just too big and too strong for them to be able to actually compete. And so you'll find they'll rather just try and kind of leave it and try and move away than to engage with the male during that time. So how cool are these guys? I think they're very cool. Don't go down. I don't want you to go down. No, it's gone down. Now, I believe a lot of you are very happy to see the foxies. Yes, it's always delightful. Unfortunately, though, they all disappeared on us. Like I say, it's just too many cars. So after 4 cars and a tractor, they're just not interested in really being out and about anymore. And so we got you a little bit too late, which is a bit of a shame, but it's okay. You know, these things happen, and hopefully we at least got to see them a little bit, and we got to see them walking around, which is probably more than what we've seen most mornings that we've been here, because generally they're doing just that, and they're all cuddled up and trying to sort of stay as warm as possible. But now with the sun coming up, they'll warm up quite quickly, and they'll have a much better time of it, I'm sure. Very cool animals, though. It's so nice that there is a den site, and hopefully, you know, they'll just stay here for years to come, and we'll be able to kind of keep finding them in a similar area, and that we can actually see the little ones kind of more often. Mrs. Lowe, their fur does look a bit like wool, doesn't it? It's got a very interesting kind of texture to it. I always kind of think of it as, I've said this before, but in fly fishing, when you tie flies, there's a certain stuff called dubbin, and it looks very much like that. It's like this thick kind of fur, but it's very sort of, it looks like it's got quite thick fibers within that fur. So it's not soft fur like a rabbit. It looks a little bit more kind of, like you say, woolly is probably a good way to describe it. But they're super cute little animals. I thoroughly enjoy spending time with these guys. I've enjoyed this little den a lot, because my experience with bat-eared foxes prior to this was few and far between. I mean, I've seen them, but never actually spent a lot of time with them. Minamu, for sure they will. So they will use different den sites at different times. Remember, defecating and urinating creates smell, and it starts to become unbearable and unpleasant in there, and they'll then start to move and try and kind of figure out a new place, and normally it's not too far. So it's like hyenas, it's like leopard, lions, every sort of animal does this, is that they at some point will move their dens. They very seldom keep a den for very long periods of time, and that's because obviously as they go, there we go, that's the end of that. Unfortunately, it's another car that came, and so there go our bat-eared foxes, and unfortunately for us, the end of our sighting, which is very, very sad, because I was hoping that we were going to get the bat-eared foxes for a rather long segment this morning, but alas, this is the way it goes. And so we're going to carry on. We're going to go see if we can find the scene of the bloody hippo. And while we do that, let's send you back to Steve, who's trying to see if he can find some baby impalas.
Yes, well, we needed to have a look at our baby impala for the first time, and now they've just moved behind the bushes there. I've got Marcel, who's trying out on camera for the moment, and there he is showing us some baby impala. Well, for the moment, there's some adults. The babies have just moved up in the front. I did see some babies up in the Mara, but they don't have the same seasonality that we find down here in Djuma. And soon, there we go, there's a little one on the left. They're moving through a little bit of a thicket here, but it's going to come out in the open for us in a moment. There we go. The most favoured food out here in the Sabi Sands or in the Kruger National Park this time of year. Leopards, lion, martial eagle, baboon, rock python will all enjoy a baby impala from time to time, and it's amazing because you'll often find many a predator with baby impalas, but yet they seem to still boost in the number without too much of a dent. Sally, I haven't seen any baby kudus. Generally, the kudus try and breed in the summer months when the vegetation is doing a lot better. So I've no doubt in the next few months we might see some baby kudu, but for now it is baby impala time. But I've only seen the first little group of kudu there as well, so it's possible that some of those female were pregnant, and we might be seeing some in the coming months. I saw one baby wildebeest last night, and it is the time of year for the wildebeest to be born. A lot of the animals down in South Africa, with our enormous winter and summer seasonality, try and tend to breed in the summer months when the vegetation is at its best, so that the adult can not only get the nourishment they require, but also enough for the youngsters for lactation. Well done, Marcel. Everybody is congratulating you. Welcome. There we go. Now they're busy crossing the road on the left there, Marcel. You can actually see a few of them just popping out. Never too late. It is almost a nursery group, but essentially the nursery group is away from the herd. Early on in the first month or so, you'll find a group of 15, 20, 30, 40 baby impala, all on their own, maybe with one adult around. But here you can see that they're already integrated into the herd. They're moving with the herd. No doubt they're already doing a lot of feeding as well. They're still required to suckle from mum for a period of time still, but they've already started feeding on some vegetation. And that is often seen by when you look at the babies, they're busy chewing because they're already starting to get the rumination going. And just little mini-me's. Very, very cute to see. It's one of my favourite times of year with the lambing. Just missed the early stages, but here we're getting to see the youngsters integrating in. No sign of any horns yet on the head. In the next month or so, all the little boys will start developing little protrusions on their head. The first, and there's a Dacre in the background who just decided to photobomb. Well, that gave the impala all a little bit of a fright. Anything moving low down in the thickets often attracts the attention. But the impala looking in pretty okay condition considering the dryness that is still around. Feeding on any nourishment that comes through in the form of grass and leaves. So they're able to capitalize on that. And the kudu really taking a little bit longer to catch back. Flying high, you want to know how fast the babies are? I have actually no idea. Probably about 50-60% of the adults. That's how fast they are. They're able to keep up with the adults at a sprint, but they are not as agile. They're not able to jump as high, so they don't actually get to move as quickly, but they are very fast in their own right, the little youngsters. The impala built for very quick movements and high speeds. That the back legs arched, you can see how the back hips are much higher than the front. They are spring loaded, enabling them to jump and to spring out of the way of any passing predator that might be coming. But how fast exactly, I couldn't tell you. We'd have to get Brent out here to do a race with them. Darby, what do you reckon?
That's good.
Okay, well, let's carry on. We are checking our southern boundary, doing... Minamu, the babies will stay with the herd for this entire year at least. Any male will still be with the herd by the next rutting season, which will be in sort of April, May. But the young males will actually stay in the herd until sort of the lambs start being dropped, which will be in a whole year's time. Females, though, will stay in the herd. If the herd gets too big, they might split up, but it's generally the big dominant male that starts to push any of the young males out. But generally the first year, they stay with the herd, and as soon as they start showing themselves to be male, well, these very touchy males decide to push them out. But they do stay with the herd for a very good time, and that's why we can get such large herds of impala at time to time, and them moving through really do clean up any sort of saplings and small trees that happen to be trying to make their way through. I'm sure we're going to be seeing lots and lots of that over the coming weeks. Tuti, as far as I'm aware, impalas only give birth to one lamb at a time. It's possible that twins can happen. I've never seen it, I've never read about it, but in nature that sort of thing does happen from time to time. But I do believe only one, and they have a gestation period of 6.5 months. Generally most of the females breed or are impregnated in the rutting season, which is in April, sort of May time, and then all dropping their lambs sort of middle of November. They should all have dropped by now, but then there is a secondary rut that comes on from time to time in August, September for any of the females that might have sort of missed the boat. And then that's what often you can get, what we call a laat lammetjie, which is a late lamb, a baby that is delayed, and that is purely to do with the fact that the rut, or the second rut, came in much later. And you get a few more smaller ones. So in about 4 months' time, you suddenly get you get a couple more small ones. It's just that late season breeding. It's not that common. There's definitely 2 peaks around the wet period, but not like here where the seasonality is very pronounced. So as always, we're just moving around the boundary, having a look if there's any tracks, working in conjunction of course with the bushwalk team that are doing the same, looking, obviously they're not on the boundary, but looking for any tracks of anything. We were actually playing a little bit of a game of what we call hacky sack. I don't know if you've ever heard of the word hacky sack. It's a little bean bag, or called foot bag. We were playing in our car park last night, and I had the strangest feeling that I could see a leopard. We were looking down, we could see a log actually. Marcel, who's on the camera at the moment, ran to get my binoculars, and as he did so, we saw a leopard walk behind the log that we'd been looking at. So that was very cool. That was very cool, and I think Herbie is following up on the tracks there, but most likely the little chief. But who knows? Who knows? No doubt he was coming to welcome me back, as he does. He's a very nice fellow, a very good friend of mine, in fact. Nice to see these little pans with some water. Just have a little reverse back there. We're on our sort of southern boundary, coming up towards a treehouse watering hole, and these little pans are always a very important place to check, because not only do they provide water for the herbivore animals, they're a nice area for leopards to stalk out and to hang out in. And the water's a bit more abundant across the property now, so animals like Hosana and Tingana will have to move, because it'd be much harder to find your herbivores because they can spread out. But anyway, Sydney, who is on foot, I don't know if they found any tracks, but let's go see what they're up to.
I am trying to listen to what is happening here. I did pick up some audio on hyenas from both directions. And where we are at the moment is a possible area for Hosana this morning. So we are just going to go deep in here to see if maybe we can pick up any of the fresh evidence which is going to lead us to see the little chief Hosana. So we have been checking these areas of the Philemon's deep, and we haven't picked up any tracks this side, so which means somewhere deep in here things are happening. Maybe Hosanna caught something in the middle. Who knows? My elephant dung microphone will be back. It went for the repairs. So it will come back anytime soon. The thing is, now that it's raining a lot here in Djuma, so the elephant, the dungs are not strongly compacted. So I must have to wait until they are completely dry. And something else again is that when it's raining, the dungs get sterilized, and after that, that wood, all the dry wood, starts to attract the termites to come and eat. So I am not picking them up now unless I can see that nothing is under it or is completely dry. So those dungs, when you see them lying on the ground, is when they're waiting for the insects to come and take them back to the soil. So none of this elephant dung is going to be left unattended. Everything is going to get decomposed again. It will be dealt with by those little insects back to the soil. Oh yeah, there's something here, and this is interesting. Look here, we have got these two markings, and if you look here, there's some urine here which is stuck against this tree, and this urine is much more white. So if you see the milky colored urine on top of these trees, you must know it's associated with one of the big animals. So these two scratch marks is telling you that the rhino has been here. So rhinos, normally, after the heavy rains, they experience problems. They've got to go back and renew the scent on their territories. That is why you will see them scratching the ground a lot and putting the urine against these trees. This kind of urine, let me just try to sniff this. I can pick up this urine. It's a very strong scent. It's not dry. You can see here that the urine is still there everywhere. It's a very strong scent. This scent is strong in such a way that it can stay here for about 3 months. But in 2 weeks' time, I'm not going to pick it up. But animals themselves, they are going to be able to pick this kind of a scent. Reason for this kind of scents to be deposited here is called olfactory communication. This is a kind of a communication which takes place through the various skin glands, including urine and droppings. Let's rather call this a bulletin board. This is a bulletin board. Why? Because if another animal comes there and sniff, we'll get the information about the one who deposited the scent. Information such as how old is this rhino and how aggressive this rhino could be. A decision as to whether I can go into this rhino's territory and challenge him is taken there. And whoever wants to provoke him must go on top of his scent and leave behind the scent, so that when he comes back there to renew the scent, he can be provoked and go and look for him, and a fight is going to take place. So now, let's quickly go back to Steve, who is having a lovely bed.
Hit the treehouse dam, folks. I could hear some Egyptian geese screaming over here. I wonder if maybe they saw someone they didn't like. Oh no, there we go. It's because they're on a nest in the top of the tree there. We have goslings on the go. Can you see the tree at the other side of the dam there, Marcel? Yeah, there we go. There is an Egyptian goose on a nest. And they are preparing for some more goslings. And, well, the tales will go on and on and on again for months once we find the Egyptian geese with some youngsters. As we all know, the Egyptian geese at Buffelshoek watering hole are James's favourite in the whole wide world. James Hendry really enjoyed that pair. And I say that completely with huge sarcasm. So there we go. That I don't know if that necessarily was an Egyptian goose nest before. They're using it now. They often will utilize the nests of other birds. That possibly might have even been a buffalo weaver nest. It's hard to say. Seems like it was... She's trying to tell me, but I don't speak the language. They're well known to nest on the top of other individuals. They'll provide their nest on top of hammerkop nests, on top of old eagle or raptor nests. They really don't mind too much. The only key is it needs to be close enough to water so that when the little youngsters emerge, well, they don't have too far to fall, and if they do, at least they can jump down into the water. So very good. She is standing vigil. I'm not sure if they have laid eggs yet or not. Have you seen this individual yet up there, Darby?
No.
Okay, well, we are going to move on from our Egyptian geese grouping. Maybe we will find out if they are nesting indeed, but in the meantime, all the way up in the Masai Mara, Tristan has found a battle-scarred hippopotamus.
Indeed, we were with a hippo. This is not our hippo friend that unfortunately got beaten up last night. This is a different hippo. There's so many around this area that it's quite common to see lots of them moving about. But you can see just plodding along as per normal, having a little stop to admire the view and to see what's going on. This is quite a large male hippo, this particular fella. It's got you can see a big head and a very round, big tummy. Now, you can see where the skin has dried out a little bit during the course of the night. The tummy is also very full from eating, and you'll find they're now on its way slowly back towards the river where it's able to go and lie in the water before the sun gets too hot and it dries out too quickly. So these guys do this. They move fairly kind of quickly in the mornings, or maybe not quickly is the right word, but methodically, let's call it that, towards water and then back into the water before it gets too hot. And I can tell you now, the sun, even though it's just risen, it's got a nice warmth to it already, and is feeling kind of as though it's going to be a rather hot day, that's for sure. Yeah, white-faced whistling ducks. Hello, white-faced whistling ducks. Can maybe hear them calling as they kind of flew past. There they go, over the top of the hippo. So nice to hear them again. I haven't heard them in a while. Obviously they migrate to South Africa, so we'll see them a little bit later in the year. Now, do hippos have harems never too late? So I suppose yes is the answer, but it's a weird kind of thing. It's not like a male will follow females around all day long. What you find is that males will try and secure a territory or a pool, and that will encompass females, and he'll protect that area and those females. At night, obviously, everybody separates out and goes and tries to find food, and then they all come back to the same place. So it's more along the lines of him trying to kind of secure a territory, and then his females come there. So I don't know if a harem's the right word for it. I suppose it's more he's territorial, and that allows him to have a certain number of females within his kind of area, and he won't actively chase those females around and keep them in the same place. So harem is probably not the right word for it, but he has a grouping of females that he will collect due to the fact that he has a prime position where females want to be, which will be good for their babies and a good place for water that's deep enough that they can get their whole bodies in, but not too deep that there's a huge current. And so that's the kind of game that they play, is that they try and set up a territory that's going to have ideal conditions, and therefore females will come to that and they can then mate with them. It's not so much that they keep every single female within their grouping. Like, let's say a zebra has a harem, he'll chase other males away, he'll try and round those females up and keep them with him as much as possible. Right, he's drifting off. There's a tractor behind us that's coming through, so we're going to try and put some distance between us and them. So we're not too far from where the hippos were fighting yesterday. Karen, you say they look so odd out of water? They do. Oh, that's quite a nice shot, Arch. Look, the hippo is trying to kind of, it was displaying, and the steam was kind of coming out of its mouth and making for quite an interesting kind of thing. And now it's stopped, it's not doing it anymore. Charging, it's not, maybe not charging Charlie anymore, but you can see a bit of steam coming out of his mouth or his nose when he's walking. If you look there, you can see it every now and then. It's quite cool, actually. So you can see lots of steam there, which is awesome. That's very cool. It's a steamy hippo. You can see when he breathes how it all starts to come out, and very, very pretty. Nice against that golden backlight. Are you just going to pose for us? Is that what you're doing? Or are you going to disappear? He's going to disappear into the forest shortly. But that was very cool. Very pretty with that light, and like I say, him just kind of standing there. Now he might... exactly, too hot to handle. It's like Gloria, this hippo. From Madagascar, for those of you who don't know who Gloria is. That was a hippo that was too hot to handle. What was the name of her suitor? Emma, you'll know this. The male one. What's it? Something... It was the two... He had two names. I can't even remember now what it was. I'll remember at some point. No, Marvin was the giraffe. I don't know who the male hippo was, I can't remember. But he had a double, like his name was the same thing repeated, I remember. I think. I don't know. It's been a long time since I ever thought about the movie Madagascar. No, what do you mean? No, Emma. Conrad is Googling it. Jeez, I've got the whole team now going through this. This is wonderful. So we've got Google going on. We've also got about 4 billion cars on the same road. I don't know why it's so busy this morning, but it is. Which is not really delightful. Moto. So Moto, the male hippo, who was the suitor to Gloria in Madagascar, that's who that we just had. He was kind of strutting his stuff and trying to make sure he looks good. Now I have a funny story about a car that's on our right hand side, which yesterday afternoon on our start of our drive we drove past this very vehicle, which is, as you can see, sitting right there. Now as we drove along, Manu and I were wondering to ourselves, what are they looking at? They kind of were out of the top of the car and they were scanning, and then as we went past we thought, I reckon they stuck. But we weren't sure, the guys didn't call us over to help them, so we were like, okay, carry on. So we carried on, but evidently they were stuck, and there lies the car now. It's going to have to be probably pulled out. Those people obviously got rescued by another vehicle last night and taken to whatever camp they are staying at, and that car is going to have to be somehow pulled or dragged out of where it is standing right now. But we laughed because that road there, not even we would go on it in these cars, after the rains we've had, and clearly that guy was very optimistic. You can see how much water there is kind of going off in that direction. It's just a big fat marsh, and so going there was not the best idea for this particular fella, and he's now well and truly stuck in the bush over there. So good luck getting that out. It's going to be quite something to try and pull that car. Although the front wheels look like they're out, it looks like just the back ones that are sitting. Anyway, those people will have a story to tell when they head back to wherever they are from. The thing is here is though, is if you get stuck like that, you get fined here if the tractor has to come and pull you out. So if they have to get the tractor out, then it's like a 10,000 shillings fine for being stuck and having to get the tractor to come and pull you out. So it's quite a thing. Anyway, we're going to drive. We're going to carry on to the scene of the crime. While we do that, let's send you back across to Steve, who is driving on much drier sand.
It is much drier down here, and I'm glad Tristan is not the one to get stuck. but being out there in the Mara after some rainfall could be quite interesting. And it looks like Marcel has spotted what I believe to be one of our resident Wahlbergs. It'll be my first Wahlbergs for the season. Let me just get it in a nice spot for you, because it is just behind. Oh, the sun is just behind it. Would you like the silhouette? Okay, so are you happy there? There we go. Darby's back on camera, and I do believe that is the Wahlberg's eagle, just by the size of it and the very sort of ruler shaped tail. And well, the Wahlberg's eagle, when I was here last year, well, last season, they were always in the same sort of trees over here, coming all the way down from sort of Central Africa to come and do their breeding. Oh, we've got, I think that's some violet-backed starlings up there, Darby, on the left. Sorry to change the topic, but on the left here we've got two more birds just directly up here at sort of 9 o'clock. I think they're violet-backed starlings. It's hard to see in this light, and the sort of characteristic streaky chest. Might just be coming into breeding plumage. I do believe it is a violet-backed starling, but I could be wrong. Nice to be back down here. New bird species to be seen. We can hear them calling all the way around. We've had redback shrikes, we've had cuckoos calling. All the migrants are back. The Wahlberg's eagle being one of the favorite migrants indeed. The woodland kingfishers are calling down here to breed. Very interesting. We'll be spending lots of time in the coming weeks having a look at the breeding birds, especially the migratory ones, because it is a very interesting thing to migrate and still to be able to come down here and breed. It's not something that most birds can do. A lot of birds that come from north of sort of the Sahara and from Europe and from Asia, that's too far to come to breed. So if they are here breeding, like the Wahlberg's eagle and like the woodland kingfishers, well, they can't have come from that far. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? I do believe those are violet-backed starlings, but the light is not great. Should we try it from this angle here, Darby? We might be able to get a little bit more light. Used to be known as the plum-coloured starling. I think it's coming into plumage. You see how it's all sort of faded? So it definitely looks like the female. If it looks like the female, the male has got a beautiful coloration. I'll show you you can see the female quite clearly there, but on the dashboard I'll be able to show you. Oh, there we go. There goes the female. On the dashboard I'll be able to show you what the male looks like. And there we go. Oh, is that Darby? Sorry, my hat. Isn't that a beautiful color? Look at that beautiful color. It's got a beak full of, looks like some form of insect or grub. Beautiful violet back. Coming into breeding plumage now. We saw what was probably two females. It might have been a male coming into breeding plumage, but this is what the beautiful male looks like. So very nice to see. First ones for me of the season. We're going to keep notching them up, and no doubt you can hear the characteristic woodland kingfisher sound in the background. And both of them, woodland kingfisher and the starlings, are hole nesting birds living in cavities. They're not able to create the cavities for themselves, but they are no doubt created by woodpeckers and barbets in search of the quest for food. Beetle larvae, horn borer moths, not moths, horn borer, wood boring insects inside the wood. And a lot of that is created by cavities or by dead trees caused by elephants. And the whole cycle out here is all very, very well connected. I would like to see some Juma elephants today. After seeing hundreds and hundreds of them in the Mara. James, you want to know when the carmines are going to be back? Well, I didn't see them last year. We didn't get carmines here, as far as I know. When I started in January, no carmines had come to Juma, but you know, normally they arrive in sort of the Kruger National Park in sort of late November, December, but it's all very seasonal. It's all very rainfall dependent. Being an insect eater, They move specifically for their food, but they don't breed here, so they don't really need to come. So I'm hoping we'll see some this year. I haven't seen some in a number of years now. They do tend to be quite localized, tend to go back to preferred sort of feeding grounds in the non-breeding time, in our summer months. But definitely the prettiest of the bee eaters. As we just over my shoulder there can see the remnants of the water in twin dams, with an Egyptian goose enjoying, no doubt, the organic material being generated off the slowly diminishing water. There has been a little bit of rain inside of this watering hole, but it still requires an enormous amount to see us through the dry season once again. And hopefully we will get some lots of late rain that we, hopefully, because, well, it's looking very, very dry. Well, it seems like Sydney's looking at all the little things. Let's go and see what he's found this time.
Here I found something. This is amazing. Unexpectedly, I have got this plant hosting a lot of ticks at the moment. All I'm seeing here is just ticks everywhere. Let me count for you. I have got these ticks here, and they seems to be mating. And there's another one here, this side. Maybe it's part of the competitors for mating activities. And if you follow my stick to here, there's more ticks there. And if you follow my stick to there, there's more. And if you come here, there's more again. And here, look at them. There are also 2 ticks there. So look at how big these ticks are. After these ticks absorbs quite a lot of blood from the animals, you will see them growing big. They have got a probe here. This probe is like a straw, and that is what they're using in order to negotiate penetration on the skin so that they can be able to absorb the blood. So this tree is hosting this kind of ticks temporarily for an animal to come so that they can get attached to. So these kind of ticks, they do sometimes give these animals problems because animals, when you see them with mange, such as the lions that are popular in the game reserve, the Mangeni males, you will see them with those kind of problems with mange, because the mange is transmitted by the it is transmitted by the ticks, and these ticks, after that, the animal got affected by the skin and is associated with itching and losing of hairs. And by the trees as well, the ticks do cause problems. When these ticks bite the trees, the leaves get affected, and you will see them with quite a lot of rash underneath here. When you see these leaves with quite a lot of rash, it means the ticks, they transmitted the problem to the trees. So not only animals got affected from a tick bite, including plants, they got affected from the tick bite. The scarabs is the... I didn't copy that question very nicely. If you can repeat for me. Colbreed. So this is their original color. They are not red because of the diet. So this is the color. You can see the camouflaged. You can see these ticks are camouflaged here. So it means the strategy for them to get camouflaged is to avoid predation by birds who eat ticks, and also to avoid the host to see them. So the victim of the tick or the victim of parasitism is called the host, whereas the victim of predation is called a prey. And that's the difference between the prey and the host, predation and parasitism. So parasitism, it is a relationship between the two species, and mostly one species get affected because they absorb something from it. Whereas if you can check, predation affects the whole body. So in other words, a victim of predation is going to die, whereas the victim of parasitism, it doesn't normally die. Sunny Jane, I am not too sure in terms of the egg-laying number of eggs when it comes to the ticks. That is something I've got to go and do my investigation so that I can understand more how these ticks are breeding and how many eggs they are laying. Yeah, indeed, those ticks were very big and it was quite a lot. So we're very lucky to see them there, because normally we just see one individual ticks just walking around. But to see them very stable like we saw just now is something very, very rare. The ticks, they can be able to transmit some of the diseases from animals to human, and you can suffer a lot from the fevers, the tick fevers. They do cause the problems, and if you can check, those that also transmit mange can also affect the human skin when they bite you. The scarabs. So those are those ticks who are transmitting mange on the animal skin. So now I am going to throw you to the Masai Mara, where Tristan is waiting to catch you on the other side.
Well, don't throw people, Sydney. I might hurt them if you were to throw them all this distance up here. But interesting things, ticks. They are, I mean, I'm not a huge fan because they always bite me and go crazy, and I always have to deal with them. Just saying hello to Alfred. Alfred's one of the rangers that always is out here and is always very polite to us and helps us, so it's always good to say good morning to him. But ticks are incredibly interesting things, and in terms of eggs and how many they can lay, a female can probably lay, well, for the most part, will lay as many as 6,000 eggs at one time, which is pretty insane when you think about it. So they can lay, I mean, it's obviously a variable thing, so sometimes a little bit less, sometimes slightly more, but roughly on average about 6,000 eggs, which is a lot. And that's why when you walk through these nests, you can often get your whole leg is just covered with all these tiny little ticks. And what's interesting with them is that once those little eggs hatch, they'll sit and they'll wait for a host. And that obviously takes a bit of time, which means that those little things can last. They can go as much as 500 days before they will die of starvation, which is crazy when you think about it. So they've got a long period that they can go without finding a host. Eventually an animal will walk past and they'll be able to get onto it and be able to then feed, which is quite cool. Right, our Tommies are busy feeding, talking about feeding, and so are the Topi in the background. It sounds though like Steve has got dung beetles that, well, are rolling dung balls.
Well, look at the size of this ball, folks. There's my hand. How incredible. This individual here, he's gone and found possibly rhino, maybe elephant dung, and is now busy moving it off somewhere away from the feeding site to bury it somewhere. And he's got, can you see, Davi, the second one? Yeah. Quite often what happens here is you'll find a male dung beetle will actually create an enormous ball, and the ball is generally species specific. Oh, it's quite big. I'm just going to move him up here again. Have a little look. Here we go. And the ball size is species specific. Generally the ball that is created is to allow for one egg to be laid inside, and the female generally follows the male who's provided this ball, and obviously she likes what she sees. They'll mate and lay an egg inside, and one dung beetle larvae will form inside there and then come out of that at some stage later on, after going through primary school all the way to high school, university, and coming out as a fully fledged dung beetle. Incredible, the weight there, if you think about the strength that this little individual has got to perform to be able to move this dung ball. is quite something. And you'll see every now and again, as it hits an obstacle, it will go back on top, do a 360-degree turn around the top of the ball to orientate itself. They generally move in a straight line as they want to move all of their food away, because sometimes these aren't just for breeding, sometimes it is food that they bury. You see how the ball is moved, it goes on top, has a little spin. There's a lot of theories out there that dung beetles can actually navigate by the stars, navigate by the sun, and you can actually confuse them by using a mirror and a light. Because if they... See, he's going to hit this little bit again. Oh, he's going to fall off. He's going to jump back on top, reorientate himself, so as to then push it in a straight line once again. And by using a mirror and a light, you can actually make a dung beetle go in a circle. Oh, he's losing it. Quickly, catch up with your ball. Because by using the sun, obviously it uses the sun to navigate in a straight line, and if I can get a mirror and a light, I can actually keep moving in a circle, and you'll see the dung beetle will move the ball in a circle. Obviously we're not going to do that now for this poor guy, but he's generally demarcated or found a small spot in the ground that he's dug into, and then will go and bury more than one ball in the ground. Some of them having a larva inside, and some are just being for food. Very, very cool. And obviously this time of year, because of the moisture in the ground, they're able to dig. Randy, you want to know about dung beetles? Are they all rollers? No, they're not. There's 4 different types. You get what we call here called the telecoprid, which means that they take the dung and they roll it away. A lot of them will also live inside the dung itself, in the dung. Some of them will bury it right down below in the soil, also producing a ball, but not rolling it anywhere. Just make the ball and then they just bury it straight down. Those are called paracoprids, almost like a parachute going down. And endo are those that live inside the dung. Those are the most common. You find them throughout the year, but this is the time of year when you see these telecoprids very predominantly moving around in the landscape with these really, really large balls of dung. And obviously the nutrient recycling that's going on here is fantastic. And what's going to do, probably going to push it in underneath the vegetation here, and then slowly start burying it into the ground. So the nutrients of the dung itself will actually be benefited in the soil eventually over time. And well, lots of animals like to seek out dung beetles, namely my favorite animal, the honey badger. Well, there we go. You can still see him. Might start burying it in a second. He's coming right up against a big leadwood here. There's no way it's going to be able to go past the leadwood. How are you seeing it there still, Darby? All right. And there we go. We've lost him in the grass, but very good. How awesome is that? It was a giant ball. That thing must have weighed 10 grams? I don't have no idea actually. But for such a small little fellow, quite incredible. And their benefit to society for the burying and removal of organic material is unbelievable and very, very important for the ecosystem. Dung beetles highly revered in the Egyptian cultures, mainly, well, for 2 reasons. The sort of introduction of organic material into the soil. Linda, we all love dung beetles, don't we? And also because they go through, during that sort of larval stage, when they're looking like big grubs inside of that dung ball, they feed on the dung, going through many, many stages of growth, and then they go into a complete metamorphosis where they cover themselves in silk and go into cocoon and come out as a dung beetle. And at that stage, they actually resemble a mummy. So the Egyptians felt quite sort of connected with the dung beetle, because that's why, maybe not the reason why they started mummification, but mummification and the look of a dung beetle in its pupal stage looks very, very similar. So both transcending into a new life form, going from one stage of life to the next. Okay, well, we are still searching for whatever we might be able to find out here on this beautiful morning. But as always, when it is busy and the ground is nice and wet, there's not only termites and dung beetles, there's also ants.
Look at them. You can see they're bringing the termite in. Look at that. So it means they have managed to catch something. Look at the big ones. So the small ones are workers there. So mostly these big ones, they are consisted of the soldiers. You can even see the big mandibles which are there responsible for them to bite. So the termites, the ants, not the termites, sorry, they are very self-organized. The queen is not responsible here to give the orders. So the drones as well are not responsible to give the orders. Drones are the male ants. Something very, oh, now there's cleanups there. Look, they are moving something very big there. You can see this is a piece of a dung from something. Look at that. They are taking it off from the ground there. So helping each other, teamwork. And look at how fast these termites can be, these ants can be. They are always busy and they can work 24/7. Something interesting I want to share with you about the ants today is that I hear a lot of people, they talk about the ant having a king. You know, there's no king here by the ants. Ants and the bees don't have a king. Their social structure, yes, is called a caste. A caste social system is where you have got the queen, and sometimes you can have a king, as the termites got the king, and you will have the workers as well as the soldiers. But here by the ants is the queen, the workers, and the soldiers. So they don't have a king. Similar to the bees, they don't have a king. Why don't they have a king? Because of the following. The king can only be there if he's there for 2 days, because the queen normally flies up in the air and give off a pheromone for mating, which will attract the male drone to come and mate with her, and after mating, that king or the male is going to die. So you can see that the kingship, it can only be there if we can say is there for less than 2 days, because that male is going to die. And suddenly the queen is just going to be by herself looking after the colony. And that queen can mate with several males or several drones. And after every mating, the male is dying, and he will die with his copulatory organ stuck by the copulatory organ of the female. Another coming male must have to remove the copulatory organ of the previous male so that he can be able to mate, because the copulatory organ of the female got sealed by the reproductive organ of the male. The ants do sleep, but they don't sleep 24/7. You know, this is how they sleep. When they are working like this, sometimes they will have their jaw up. When the jaws are up, it means they are just resting. And when they're sleeping completely, the jaws, they put them on the ground. And after that, they can just sleep for just about a few minutes. And if you can multiply, they can sleep 250 times. And if you can multiply 7 to 8 minutes, multiply by 250, is almost 8 to 9 hours. So it means these insects, this short sleep they are having, oh, that thing fell in there. It can be able to lead them to sleep for about 9 hours. But the queen can sleep much longer than that. Yeah, they've got a very interesting structure. And if you look here, you can see there's a path. And this path is leading us to the nearest colony. So it means this colony and that one is connected. Maybe they've moved from here and they're going to stay to that side. And each one of them got its own scent. But if it's the same one, it means it's the similar scent from there to here. You can see they've got a serious highway here. So this is how an ant track looks like. After they have moved from here to there, this is what we are seeing. And if there's a stick like this, they don't climb over the stick. They must always go underneath. And this is how you can easily tell about the ant track. Barbara, that is quite a lovely question. Do the termites have any defense against the ants? There's two types of defense, and they've got different strategies. One, they've got something here. in the middle of the forehead, they've got what is called a frontal gland. A frontal gland is what they use. It's like a gunshot. They shoot the chemical, but they can only shoot it once. Once that chemical is shot, they cannot do it again. So once they shoot the chemical, it can be able to kill the ants because the ants is the predators. If they don't want to do that, the old ants, the old termites, they normally approach the ants who are coming to give a problem, and they go to the middle and explode. When they explode in their body, they are consisted of quite a lot of glue, and this glue sticks their predators, and that is how the ants are going to die. So you can see that they are very clever. It's the ones who started the suicide bombing, the termites. They have been doing the suicide bombing for quite a long time. So now, let's go back to the Masai Mara, where Tristan is having some wildebeest.
Indeed, we are back in the Mara, and surprisingly, I've got a herd of wildebeest in the kind of area that I would not have thought we would have seen them at this time of the year. I mean, there are scattered kind of groups of them here and there, but not many, and most of them have been all kind of down on the southern boundary. But I think we're going to be in for a real treat, because there's a whole clan of hyenas that has come in with looking very, very interested in what's going on here. So just on the top there, you'll see that there's probably 3 or 4 of them that just came bounding over the hill. I wonder if they just heard wildebeest and thought to themselves, hang on a second, this is something we haven't seen in quite some time, and maybe this is worth investigating. Remember that the wildebeest, most of them, like I say, have gone south into Tanzania, and there's a few small pockets of them down south, but this is the first one that I've seen up as far as where we are at the moment. We're not very far from Serena, so we're right in the center, and these guys are milling about. It's a very small herd. It's not a big grouping at all. I mean, not by the migration standards. I mean, this is just a little drop in the ocean, in fact less than, but it's still a grouping, and it's still a potential viable food item for both lion and hyena and various other animals that hunt these wildebeest. They are accompanied by a grouping of zebra, which is obviously quite nice, which is typical as well. So when you see the migration, you'll see a lot of this kind of thing. But what I'm interested to see is whether or not these guys are going to head down towards the river and potentially cross, because it is a way away, but that's the direction that they're heading, is they're heading straight down towards the river. Now, a group like this could very well be part of the loiter herd that is starting to move back towards the conservancies. So there's lots and lots of them around, but nice to see anyway. It's always nice when there's a few wildebeest around, because generally things happen around them, between lions and hyenas and various other things. And there you go, you can see they're all going to start trotting now as they go across the road. So everybody's going to decide it's time to start moving, and so there's going to be one long line of them that's going to kind of go along and cross, and hopefully find themselves a place to, what would the word be, settle down. Now there's 2 more that are going to come. They'll be the last 2 that will right, so everyone decided it was time to run. Now that they're on this side, it's time to walk again. So that was all the wildebeest that kind of ran along. They all decided, the zebras weren't phased at all. They're like, well, this is just par for the course. But I'll turn a little bit so we can see them on the other side here. No, that's reverse gear. We need the other gear. And so you'll see here now, okay, I can give you a better idea of what's going on. Right, so here's this kind of stretch out here. It's not many wildebeest, like I said, it's a very small group, and there's a very small group of zebra with them. But essentially the way that they're heading is straight towards the river. So the river is behind them. Where that Inselberg is, straight behind that is where the river runs. You can actually see a bit of the forest kind of going around it. So they are heading in that general direction, and like I said, these lot do need to kind of cross the river to go back up to the areas that they spend time, if they are part of the loiter herd, which I would imagine that they are. And so they'll head up and then they'll go through the national park and then up into the conservancies, where they spend a lot of time there through the wet season and short and long rains. And they head back this side, sort of July area, around there, June, July, they start coming back. But it's interesting, and it's amazing. We drove here yesterday, there was not a single sign of a wildebeest, and then this morning they're here. Yeah, very nice. Well, I'm just going to sit here for a bit, see if these hyenas decide to try and follow them around. In the meantime, let's send you back down to Steve, who's got a feathered friend.
We do have a feathered friend indeed. We have a Bateleur eagle. She's just hiding inside of this marula tree. And well, Bateleurs are commonly found scavenging off of kills, so we're going to have a little scratch around here and see if we can find exactly what this individual is hanging around for. Seems to be looking down on the ground there. It is a very tricky time of year to find predators due to the fact that there's an abundance of water. The animals are all spread out, so we'll use any signs of the bush that we can, from alarm calls to scavenging birds, to find our cats. And this is seemingly an individual that's just coming into adult plumage. It's not easy to see now, but you could almost see when it turned its neck there that the front of its throat is a little bit whiter in color, and the whites that it has on the shoulder are not very clear at the moment. Not very clear at all. Possibly a young male coming into breeding plumage. It does take them 7 years to reach the breeding plumage. The face has already gone quite red, and the plumage will be overall black with some whites either on the shoulder or also around sort of the lower primary feather area. Come on, show us yourself properly there, please. It suddenly decided to become an owl and camouflage with the backdrop of the marula tree. Okay, well, we're going to come around the corner there and see if we can maybe get a better view of what this individual is looking at, if anything at all. It's possible that there's nothing there. This is an area that, for the most part, we had many Bateleurs in last time I was here for some breeding. Breeding not far from here, a couple of trees down in the drainage behind us, and just got a little bit of a spider web across the lens there. There we go. Marcel is back with me on camera. Marcel, we're going to go around the corner, see if we can see what this beautiful bird is looking at. So, regarded as one of the snake eagles, they are well known for scavenging off carrion, as I spoke about before, but will also take small mammals and snakes, small birds. A very efficient flyer. We'll probably get another look at him up here in the tree before he flies away. Just got to scan the bottom. Does that work there? There he goes. He's not fully mature. He's quite mottled, in fact, on the feathers, which means either it's going through a complete molt or it is coming into adult breeding plumage. We did have a young one hanging around here for most of the year that I remember. And yeah, well, off he goes. We can just have a little look around here at the base of the tree, see if there's anything of interest. We'll use any signs of the bush that we can. But I think it might just be an individual hanging around. Finding vultures with a Bateleur eagle or vultures with a tawny eagle, generally a very good sign, but just finding them one on their own, they might just have spent the night not doing too much. Just a little look in there. Mark might indeed help us locate a spotted cat. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful indeed. Listening, smelling, feeling the landscape. Well, indeed, the lifespan of a Bateleur eagle, I actually don't know. I suppose it's somewhere in the 20s, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to double check that. Ravi, you don't know? No? I'm going to assume it's somewhere around the 20s, but don't hold me to that. I'm definitely going to have to double check. But I do know that it takes 7 years for them to lose what we call their training wheels. You know, when a youngster rides a bicycle, we give them training wheels. The Bateleur eagle, also known as the short-tailed eagle, the adults have got a very short tail. It's almost invisible. But the youngsters have got a much bigger tail to enable them to have a little bit more stability in flight. Once they start flying, the adults, a really difficult time. They fly very low and they have this very unstable sort of... Can you say that again for me, Em? So I didn't get the number from Indigo Girl. 27 years, Indigo Girl. You've confirmed 27 years for Bateleur. That's a very good age. I mean, I think most of our large raptor species sort of get to that sort of age. The ground hornbill being an exception, not that it's a raptor, a bit of an omnivore, they can get up to 40s, which is the same age as a rhino and a hippopotamus. So I think it's quite incredible. But then you think about birds like African grey parrots. Apparently they can live up to 70 years of age. Definitely an investment when you get one of them. Oh, it's a hornbill. There's a hornbill. Sorry, I'm not going to show you a hornbill right now. I'm sure we will see plenty. But another bird that uses a hole or cavity for breeding. Randall, you don't know how many mice it can eat in 27 years. I have no idea how to give you an answer to that question, but probably more than me. Definitely more mice than I'll eat in 27 years. They're not the most efficient hunter when it comes to fast-moving prey. Emma said, how many marshmallow mice? Definitely a lot of marshmallow mice. But the Bateleur not being the most sort of agile hunter, being a bit of a scavenger, but they will definitely come down on snakes. Small mammals, I mean, I've never actually seen a Bateleur coming down like a falcon or like a goshawk and at speed taking out any sort of small mammal on the ground. So I don't know how high a diet of how many mice feature in the diet of a Bateleur. They don't really have the adaptations to hover above the ground like a black-shouldered kite and then fly down with absolute urgency. Just loving looking at the ground again. Lots of tracks, but I have yet to find a single leopard track this morning. No doubt they're around. Times like this, lots of water availability, lots of baby impala. Leopards don't generally need to go too far. But anyway, we're right on our eastern side. We're going to head up towards Buffelshoek Watching Hole. In the meantime, let's go over to Sydney for an update.
So you can see that I'm also attracted by what this tree is doing at the moment. As you can see that the flowers are much more yellow at the moment here. This is the weeping whittle, the very popular tree to be used as a toilet paper in the bush. During the flowering period, this is how that weeping whittle toilet paper looks like. So the reason for this plant, in order to produce these very attracting flowers, is to get the insects and the bees to come here. So, but what attracts the insect a lot is the sweet smell. This kind of a tree gives off a sweet promise from nectar, and that sweet promise is the one that will then attract the insects to come. And when the insects are here, unawarely, they are playing a significant role, because moving around here and touching all these different kinds of flowers we are seeing and moving to the next trees is going to serve when it comes to pollination. These kind of insects, such as bees, can visit 50 to 1,000 and more different trees at the same day. So, but it only works to the species of to the flowers of the same species. So now I want to talk to you about something. Not all the flowering plants produce flowers which will attract the bees. The carnivorous plants, those that normally bloom the flowers with some of the sticky and slimy fluid, which are much more bright to attract these other insects, including the flies, don't really attract the bees. And that is a trap. Some of these flowers, like the Venus trap, They also call it a Drosera rotundifolia. The Drosera rotundifolia is a plant, one of the insectivorous or the carnivorous plant. When an insect lands on it, when the flowers are open like this, it gets stuck there, and that flower is going to close, and they will start to digest the insects. And that is how those kind of plants are surviving. Normally, they're exposed in the area where there is a lack of nitrogen. So you can see that the bush is very interesting. Think about the carnivorous plants, plants that are catching the insects. So now let's go to one of those animals who are also assisting when it comes to the pollination. Let's go to birds.
Well, not really the pollination. Oh, there it goes. See if you can keep up with it, Marcel. It's landed at the back there. I wonder if any of you, ladies and gentlemen back home, are able to identify this small accipiter for me. You're going to see it coming down on the bottom of the screen there. There it is. It's very easy to identify this one. Small raptor, and we were just talking about a bird that likes to hunt mice or pursue birds. And here is a very, very good example of it. You can see the yellow cere, which is the beak, the yellow legs. And if you look closely, you can actually see it has got a red eye. Very beautiful bird. Nice to see it out in the open. I wonder if any of you #SafariLive can tell me what raptor species is this. Very easy identified with the red eye. We wait for your answers. Let's have a bit of a shake. A little bit of barring, or a little bit of civet. No, it's not a tawny eagle at all. This is a small accipiter, so one of the falcon-like goshawk sort of animals, way smaller than a tawny eagle. It's only 29 grams, in fact, very, very small. One of the smallest of the small birds. Sorry, not 29 grams, 29 centimeters, 133 grams. Thomas, and not an African goshawk. Not an African goshawk. The red eye is kind of diagnostic for this species. It sometimes can be confused with the gabar goshawk and also maybe the little sparrowhawk. Deja vu, it is not a kestrel. Not a kestrel. All of these sort of accipiters are grey. Generally have yellow or orange legs and beak. The combination of which is often what is used to define the difference between them. And with that very red eye, that is the very important characteristic, with that very lightly sort of rufously barred chest. Funny enough, the name implies hunter. It is indeed, Sandy, it is indeed a shikra. And a shikra actually means, I suppose, in Sanskrit, I think it means a hunter. It is a bird that was used for hunting. Although unique to the goshawk sparrowhawk family, shikras actually feed almost exclusively on lizards. Although it should be called the lizard buzzard. They are also good at pursuing birds, small birds, up to the size of pigeons and doves. And they will also feed on rodents if they can. But generally a fast-moving hunter, and it is off it gone, down into the wilderness. And so shall we. We'll continue north. Very nice. Nice to see a shikra. First one for me being back down in June. I'm going to keep a new list this time. Add to it. Maybe if we could get the car started. There we go. So well done on you, all of you, for answering. The goshawks and sparrowhawks are very similar in design. Always have a look very closely at the differences. What color are the feet? What color is the cere, their beak? And then the eye is often a very good sort of addition to identification. A shikra being the only one with that very brightly colored red eye. Nice to remember. Tawny eagle is a very big raptor, brown in color, and all the eagles have got feathers all the way to the bottom of the talons, or to the talons themselves, whereas your goshawks, sparrowhawks do not. They have very clean looking legs. generally, as I said, orange or yellow, and the combination of the legs being the same color as the cere or being opposite in coloration is often the deciding factor. Whether they did that on purpose to just look cooler than each other, we don't know, really. We don't know. Well, I can tell you it is certainly heating up down here in Djuma. No doubt Tristan is having a little bit more of a cooler time up in the Masai Mara. There are still wildebeest and zebra aplenty up there, and no doubt he is going to be spending some time with the remnants of the migration.
We are having a nice time. It's been a very, very, very chilled morning this morning. It's still sitting with wildebeest. Now, this is not the same group that we saw earlier. This is a whole bunch more of them that are around. Mara is a weird place. This happens regularly. I mean, even when the migration is around, you'll see the same kind of things happen where you'll have nothing, and then all of a sudden they're here out of nowhere. And I mean, last night I was in this area, and there was not a single sign of a zebra or a wildebeest anywhere in this area. I mean, we drove around this section yesterday, and there was not much going on. And now we've got wildebeest, not many of them, but a few, and zebras by the hundreds that are spread from here all the way across. So they come along this side, and it doesn't look like much here, but if you keep going kind of to the left, Arch, there, that hill in the background, behind all of those zebras there, that hill there is just zebras all the way along. So it's difficult to see, but you might see little dots in the background there. So it stretches from that hill all the way through that valley, all the way on top here. And like I said, there was nothing yesterday, but yet today they've all of a sudden just arrived back here again. So, you know, it's such an odd thing. They're almost as though they kind of chase the rains in some respects. So where the rains kind of goes, where they sort of head. The reason why we've stayed with them and not just kind of driven through, I mean, I know we've seen zebra and wildebeest by the thousands out of the Mara, and we've spoken probably to death about them, really. But the reason we're staying with them is that every single one of them is heading to the river, and so it makes sense just to follow them a little bit. I mean, we might get nothing out of it. They might just kind of end up grazing on top here and not really dropping down, but they could head towards the river, and we might get one last crossing, which would be quite nice. It would be a nice way to go and leave. You'll also notice that there's what looks like a candy stripe lily in front of those zebras, so in the grass there, for you guys that like flowers. So it looks like, yes, it is. Is it a candy stripe? So it's certainly one of the crinums. It's a lily of some sort. I'm not sure if it is candy stripe. It might be. It's a little far to tell. I'll actually have a look through my binoculars because get a little bit more detail than just on a small screen. Yeah, they do look like candy stripe lilies. They are candy stripe lilies, which is very nice. So a few flowers in amongst the zebras as well, which makes things quite nice. So, you know, it's weird how they've turned and sort of come back this way. It might be something to do with rain. We know that they often, when it rains, they'll start heading to those areas. They know that green grass will flush, and obviously here we got a lot of rain yesterday. So maybe the other areas that they've been hanging out down towards the Tanzanian border didn't get much, and so they thought they'd move up this way, and by tomorrow they will be all gone again. It's the kind of nature of the movement of wildebeest and zebra. You see a couple buffalo that have fitted right in, and if you ever wondered how different buffalo and wildebeest look, you can see quite clearly there, just from a size point of view, how much bigger buffalo is. It's much bulkier than what the kind of wildebeest are, much bigger horn set than what you see from wildebeest, and they don't have that same slanted back. Their back is typically quite straight, and no mane that hangs down around their heads, and even the horns themselves are a little bit different. You see how much more kind of densely packed that horn is on top. Ears are larger, and just an overall general different appearance to what you see from a wildebeest. But it's a nice kind of comparison between the two of them. Often people wonder about buffalo and wildebeest and whether or not they look quite similar, but that you can tell there quite quickly how different they actually are, and size-wise how different they are. You get the typical nodding of the wildebeest in the background. You'll see that a lot from zebra, wildebeest, topi. Now in topi it's a little bit different. In zebra and wildebeest it's often due to a parasitic fly that's laid its larvae in their nose called a botfly. But in the topi they reckon that nodding is a communication between them. So often if you drive up towards topi, they start nodding all of a sudden as you get there, and then they stop. So it's not to do with that insect or that parasite like the wildebeest and zebra have. It's more to do with they reckon a social kind of contact between each other and sort of know exactly what they're doing, which is quite interesting. Now, Double Dash, they are all friends. They're all herbivores, so no need to not be friends. Ultimately, more eyes and ears means less chance of being hunted. And so they're quite happy to spend vast majority of their time together between wildebeest and zebras and topi and tommies and buffalo. You know, they're often all milling about in the same places, also because generally they've all come to the same area because of the grazing is that good, and so they kind of congregate around the same place. These guys are not nearly as mobile as the other group that we had. The other group has gone down between the two Inselbergs that this road follows. So I want to just shift down there, because if they're still moving as quickly as they were, they should be starting to get a little bit closer towards the river itself, and might head down. And it will actually be an interesting crossing, because the rivers are full enough now that the crocodiles can wreak some havoc. They will cause havoc, let's put it that way. And you might find it will actually be quite difficult for these guys in many respects, with the river being a little higher than what it was during the main sort of migration period. Sorry guys. Beep beep. This is the thing about wildebeest, is it often takes a bit of time for them just to decide which way they want to go, and then it's always good just to let them cross. Some of them will decide, no, the other side is better, and they'll stay there. Okay, thank you guys. Hopefully we'll see you at the river just now. Yes? Okay, excellent. Thank you. They all nodded in agreement. They all gave me the head nod of the wildebeest to say, yes, we're coming. It would be nice though, like I say, it would be cool to have a crossing to finish up. It's the only thing I haven't seen this cycle. This cycle has been pretty much everything has been around, bar obviously wild dogs, but I've seen lots of everything, and so crossing would be the kind of completion of a Mare experience, really. Good. We're going to head down the hill. We're going to see where those other wildebeest have gone. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Steve.
Thanks, Tristan. I hope you managed to get a crossing on your last morning. That would be sensational. But what we've got is we've got some flowering trees in the form of the false marula. Very, very pretty and delicate yellow flowers that are in the tree, and the false marula, being a very nice fruiting tree, is actually part of the mango family. And well, they are covered with flowers on the floor here. Plenty of them are all falling off. It's possible they have already been pollinated. I was having a look in the tree and saw lots of bees, lots of insects, beetles moving through. Once the flowers have been pollinated, generally the female part inside of the flower itself will remain and then form a fruit. And in the case here, you can see it actually will be a whole lot of berries on top, on the end of each of those flowers or those stalks. And here is a beautiful yellow coloration. And all of this organic material being deposited on the floor will be eaten by the number of ants and termites that are accumulating. I am on a termite mound, and all this organic material will slowly but surely be picked up and taken into the termite mound, where very nice, tasty. Ooh, Sinette, you want to know if it smells nice? There's not too much of a smell to it, to be honest. Nothing extraordinary. I'm sure the bees are going for the coloration rather than the smell. And actually, just gently, I'm being rained on by these flowers here. It's quite special, Davy, to be back in the Sabi Sands rained on by flowers. Very mythical indeed. You can see the lovely yellow carpet on the ground here, and all part and parcel with the organic material being moving down. Jonathan, the marula trees are late. We haven't had rain. The reason why these false marulas are probably fruiting is because they are connected to this termite mound, which means they got access to the water and they're happy. The marulas, they're late. Marulas are supposed to start flowering in September, October. And I've been looking. I haven't seen a single one yet with a flower on it. So very hard to say. I mean, they were flowering when I left in September. So what happens if the tree doesn't get enough moisture? It's not able to produce the fruits and sugars that it needs to produce fruit. Fruit is an added benefit to a plant. It's not something that they can always produce. If conditions are not suitable, they don't breed. They'll rather reserve their energy for photosynthesis and breed when the time is right. But hopefully we'll see some marulas coming through. I'll be looking at all of the trees as we go along and see if there are any happening, but as of yet I haven't seen a single one, because normally by November you can already see all of the big sort of round fruits on the marula trees, laden with the fruits, but there's been nothing. I mean, in September we had the marulas flowering, and we saw lots of flowers just falling off the tree and just desiccating on the ground. There we go, Darby. I'm going to give you a nice technical shot in the air there. And we see a juvenile Bateleur moving through. There's that flight pattern I was talking about earlier. Sort of the swaying wings. That is a sub-adult. And you see the feathers, or should I say the tail, is quite long, extending past the feet. And hard to identify a male or female when they are juvenile, because you don't get that same sort of adult coloration. It's basically just a brown bird with a little bit of pale under the wing, but very, very good flyers, flying around, keeping its eye on the ground. You see just a little bit of white barring underneath the wings. No doubt we'll be searching for a meal for breakfast. But anyway, hopefully Sydney is not hungry enough to eat any of the insects he's seen this morning. I think he's got one that is quite poisonous.
I've got a very interesting arthropod. The reason why I am saying an arthropod is because these animals I'm having now, they also got the jointed legs. And that is what the arthropod word means. So if you look here, I've got two millipedes. And these two millipedes are just holding each other. This is a very long-lasting hug. The millipedes, how they mate is interesting. They mate from what is called the gonopods. Gonopods are just another form of pairs amongst the pairs of those legs, which is used in order to transfer the sperms to the females. So if you look there, they are very much stationary, and probably this must be a male and a female, maybe trying now to pass the sperm from the male organ to the female reproductive organ for breeding purposes. So the millipedes, what do they eat? They eat the decaying leaves from the trees. They are part of the dendrivores. So the dendrivores are those animals who feed on the decaying matter as well as some of the dead plants. So the millipedes, if you scorch them, you will see they are going to secrete some milky fluid. That milky fluid is medicinal. Some other people use millipedes in order to treat the ear aches. If you take that and put it in the ears, it is going to help you when it comes to the ear aches. And you can also use the dry, completely dry segments of the millipede, scorch them in order to treat fevers. Some, they use millipedes during the pregnancy. So when they're irritated, if you touch them, or when they're fighting against the intruders, you will see they normally secrete what is called a materialistic gland. This gland is situated alongside the body of this arthropod. And once it's secreted, if you contact it here on the skin, it's going to burn. And sometimes you will see the skin changing color a little bit, but it's not painful. But if there's cracks here on the skin, is when you will experience some burn. So you don't have to contact it with the eyes. It will give you problems. And it can even lead you to conjunctivitis. So you can see that these animals, when defending themselves, they can also give us some of the problems. So you can see this hug is still going to last much longer. So we found them just like this. But I can see that they are strangling each other. And maybe somewhere here where these legs are closely attached is where maybe the sperms is being transferred at the moment. When the female is interested or ready for mating activities, she leaves a pheromone on the ground which will then attract the male to follow her for mating purposes. A safari Sally. These kind of animals can live for many years. Some can even reach 7 years. So you can see that these are very much long-living arthropod. 7 years is quite a lot. And let's look at the body segment. This is so clean, as if this is staying in the house. And it's like there is someone who is looking after them, who is polishing them every time. These segments, after every third segment, they have got a brush which comes out and clean in order to make them shining like we're seeing now. And it's one of those arthropod who does clean themselves every time after mating. So they get rid of all the semen attached to the legs and attached to the body after mating. They spend much of their time not hugging, they spend much of their time just cleaning themselves. The millipedes, they do love themselves. Yeah, that is something very rare. I do see the millipedes sometimes following each other, but to find them very stationary like we did now is something very special. So, and this is all about tiny little things. Anna-Marie, I didn't copy your question in full. I just picked up that you're talking about the... Anna-Marie, I am not too sure if the exoskeleton of the millipede is consisted of the keratin. But I know some of the animals who prey on this, they don't really finally digest those segments. The civet, if you look at the droppings, you're still going to find those segments as they are when they're on the ground. And it will take time before they get decomposed when exposed to the sun. So now, from an arthropod to another arthropod.
Indeed, a very interesting insect, one of the spider hunting wasps. Hopefully, oh, where's it gone? It just disappeared. Did it get eaten by a bird? Well, what happened is it was busy digging on the ground. There was a vehicle not long ago that came past here, and these spider hunting wasps will actually go in search of spiders and also sometimes small sort of caterpillar-like insects, and will inject them with its sting and then bring it back to a hole in the ground. It's possible that the hole was here and has been driven over, and now it's trying to regain that hole. Often they will find them quite easily through smell, through pheromones. So they're able to go out to catch its spider and come all the way back and bury them again. But sadly, the action is over, folks. So, well, that was it. Very quick. Nice moves to catch it there, the Darby, but off it went. We're still heading north. Very nice. This is Guarri Pan. Haven't seen water in here in some time, and in comes a Cape turtle dove, or a ring-necked dove. Being a seed eater, they need to drink regularly. And doves and pigeons have got that very unique ability when they drink. Let's see if we're going to see it. They drink like almost a straw. Most birds have to dunk their beak and then pull their head back to drink, whereas doves and pigeons are actually able to just put their beak inside the water and sort of slurp it up. Something that's actually unique to the family. You see the very nice ring around the neck, the black eye, easy to identify it as the turtle dove or ring-necked dove. Let's see if it's going to come down. Very nice silhouette there, or reflection, my apologies. Very agile at walking on the ground. They spend most of their time on the ground walking around in search of seeds. I'm going to come down and quench there we go, there's a friend. You see how it's able to just suck the water up. That is a very unique characteristic of the family. A little bit of feet wet to cool down. Most birds, and you actually should spend time having a look at that, will duck their head down and lift it up, sort of knocking it back into the mouth to drink. They're not able to slurp up the water like pigeons are and doves are. There's a different wasp there. That is one of the carpenter wasps, or sorry, not carpenter, potter wasps. And they spend a lot of time coming towards the water, scraping up mud. Looks like it's drinking now. And they scrape up mud and they'll often go and build a little bit of a mud nest inside of generally buildings or underneath some form of cave or rocky area, and they'll do the same as the spider hunting wasps. They are a form of spider hunting wasp. They will put caterpillars or spiders inside, laying their eggs in there with them, and obviously the larvae will hatch and feed inside of the nice clay ball that they created. Very nice. It is a time of plenty around the watering hole, and we have just got, there we go, looks like a emerald spotted wood dove was busy drinking as well. Very, very nice. Well, and these are the water points you need to check if you want to find animals. And when it's hot like this, Davey and I both feel like jumping in there, although a little bit grim. And all sorts of dung inside there and very muddy. But it is an important place to search and check for all the animals. You can almost be certain that there's no crocodile inside there, so we'd probably be okay. Let's carry on. We were going to go to Buffelshoek watering hole, but I just got a call on the radio that some vehicle has stopped there for a coffee break, so we'll just deviate a little bit to not go up there. Don't want to ruin their bush experience. We'll continue on, slowly heading back towards the centre of Djuma, and then we'll slowly snake back through and around the Mwati drainage to see what we can find. Oh, well, there we go. I finally have found a track. But anyway, we're going to go all the way back up to the Masai Mara, where Tristan is enjoying the remnants of the migration. I'm sure he's not sweating as much as we are, but I'm sure he's enjoying his last morning.
Yes, well, a truck. That's an odd thing to have located in Djuma. There's not many trucks that move around in that section, but as you can see, we're sitting with some impalas and some zebras and some more wildebeest that are much closer to the river. These guys are within maybe, I'd say 500 meters of the river, not even in the river's right here. In fact, I would say less than, maybe 200 meters from the river, and are slowly track. So Emma says your nose is blocked from the flu, so it came through as a truck, and I was thinking to myself, a truck at Quarry Pan, that's a very odd thing, but a track, okay, that makes more sense. But yes, these wildebeest are slowly but surely kind of edging their way towards the river, and this is again not the same groupings that we've been seeing. This is a kind of fourth group of wildebeest that we've seen. There's more that are hanging around and coming this way, so hopefully we'll get a bit of a build-up. It's in all likelihood, I don't think it's going to happen now this morning. If I'm realistic, I'm pretty sure this will only build up by this afternoon, and then they'll go over. But there's a lot of animals that are moving this way, so a lot of zebra, a lot of wildebeest. So eventually, at some point, there's going to be some of them that are going to decide, well, it's time to actually go over and time to cross the river. So it might be a good place for Gigi to come this afternoon. Like I said, I don't think we'll catch too much of it happening, but it's interesting. It's interesting how, like I say, it's just there was no wildebeest at all yesterday anywhere, and all of a sudden there's lots of little groupings all over the place that are slowly kind of milling around and coming through, which is good. It means good things for a lot of the other animals. In fact, there's lots more on the top there. You see that, Archie? And straight ahead of us there's a whole bunch more that are also going. So there's a vehicle that you'll see there, and then straight ahead of us on the hill looks like a whole bunch more that are some zebras there. There should be some others, I think, also moving. It's all zebras that are heading that way as well. So there's quite a few animals that are, like I say, mobile towards the river, which is good news. So, Carol, no, not really. I mean, there are certain paths that they will use. So you get these kind of areas where there's very well-trodden paths that lead to certain sections. So like the Salt Lake, if you go towards the Salt Lake, there's lots of very, very deep paths that have gone there. But no, not really. They kind of just mill about and they spread out and they'll feed as they go. And you know, when you see their movement, it's not just always kind of when they decide they're migrating, it's just to start running somewhere. No, they feed for a long time, then they'll trot somewhere, and obviously predators will dictate where they go. So they don't always use the same paths. They use a similar direction, yes, but not the exact same footsteps every single time. Otherwise we just get these massive paths that will develop. What's interesting is when you fly over this place and look at it from the air, it's a very different place altogether. It almost looks like a network of veins on the land where the migration has been through, and all these kind of animals have moved. It's quite interesting actually to see from the air itself. Right. I think these guys are going to take some time to get there. I want to go and just quickly see if those zebras, how far they are from the river. They might be a good one to go and look at. It's also always a trick with these guys is to know where exactly they want to go over. So, I mean, they can build up here and then they can change direction and they go somewhere else and then they go somewhere else again. And, you know, it becomes this complicated thing where you kind of have to try and troll which crossing is going to be used. So there's main north, main south, cul-de-sac, but it looks like they're going to head a little bit further south of both of those. Not sure why this guy is reversing so far in our way, but apparently he wants to reverse all the way. I'm not sure why he doesn't just turn around, given how far he's reversed already. Maybe he just doesn't want us to be in front of him. I'm not sure. Either way. Yeah, there's a lioness. 2 lionesses. Yeah, 2 lions. That'll be interesting. Yeah, I wonder. 3 lions, 4 lions. 4. Must be the Paradise Pride. Not sure why that guy reversed all that way just to go forward again, but anyway, each to their own. It's a bit ridiculous, but okay. So it must be Paradise Pride, or 4 members of the Paradise Pride that are here. They're watching the wildebeest at the moment. There was a very interesting dynamic. I don't quite know what just happened there. I feel like I just stepped into the Twilight Zone for a second, because I just watched somebody reverse from the wildebeest all the way to the lions, see the lions, and then put it into first gear and drive all the way back to the wildebeest again. But we didn't know the lions were here. That was very weird. Anyway, you can see the lions are all milling about. There's quite a few animals moving, and so these guys are actually in a really good place to be able to hunt. They've even got a little bit of a thicket, and so if those wildebeest had to kind of move and start to come towards them, they've got a great place that they can ambush from, which is good for them. So hopefully that's what will take place, is that we'll see kind of these guys sort of hunting these wildebeest. Obviously, opportunity to hunt wildebeest is few and far between these days, and so for them I would imagine that they'd be quite keen to actually try. Now those zebras are highly mobile towards the river. I wonder what they're going to, if they're going to cross. Be interesting. They might just go for water, but these guys are still sitting. Now the Paradise Pride I have 0 knowledge about at all. See them every now and then randomly, but don't actually even know what their numbers are or kind of what their sort of structure is, given that they spend most of their time on the other side of the river. And yesterday I actually saw some of the members of the Paradise Pride. They were on the other side of the river at cul-de-sac crossing, or we thought it was some of the Paradise Pride. It was 2 young males and a female that we could see. Now let's see, these zebras are slowly coming this way, and I wonder if that's going to pull the wildebeest with them. Problem is, you can see, look at the lions, look at how they've changed their body posture. There's a zebra that's running kind of towards us. It won't be visible for you guys yet. It's going to get you eventually, and it's going to drag all the wildebeest along with it. You know, you can see the lions have noticed that these guys are coming towards them, and they have gotten themselves as low as possible. It's the one at the back though that's going to ruin this, because you can see 2 females, they're nice and low to the ground, but there's a little young male at the back who's still got his head up. Yes, you need to get your head down. There we go, head down. And so now let's see, the zebra is going to come very, very close. It's trotting literally towards them at the moment. Let's see whether they're going to make a break for it. The zebra has come out of nowhere, and it literally is running at them. Well, if we need an unscheduled broadcast, we're going to have to go now, because the zebra is about 10 meters, or not even, 20 meters from those lions. Although it's stopped now, I think it's realized, hang on a second, something's not right here, and it's going to go round. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Masai Mara. As you can see, we've got a whole bunch of lions that are lying as flat as possible, 4 lions to be exact, and they're lying flat like this because they are anticipating the arrival of some zebra and wildebeest that are slowly coming in our direction. So there's 2 zebras there. They were the leading group that were kind of trotting along, and that one actually noticed the lions and stopped in its tracks and has moved off slightly. But there is still quite a few more coming along the way, so I want to quickly just turn around and so we can actually watch them coming. My name is Tristan on camera. I've got Archie this morning, and it is a very warm welcome. And like I say, we are coming to you live, which means that you are all able to interact with us, and you can do so by just asking any questions or comments that you have in the comment section below, and we'll try and answer as much as possible. What I'm going to try to do is just try to get onto the other side of the lions here so that I can actually show you kind of what's coming their way. So unfortunately for them, they really are quite out in the open, but what's on its way is a small grouping of wildebeest. So there's a wildebeest herd that is coming this way mixed with some zebras, and they are slowly kind of coming along. Now that's what the lions are really kind of focused on at the moment, is they want these guys to come a little bit closer, and then they can try and kind of run in and chase and grab them. Now these guys will be very happy to see this because we're right at the end of the migration. The migration has mostly moved off, and there's been no sign of wildebeest in this area at all. We've seen very few wildebeest over the last few days, and all of a sudden this morning there's a lot of zebra and wildebeest all coming down towards the Mara River, and this pride is right on the bank of the Mara River at the moment. And so what they're doing is they're probably going to, their eyes must have lit up at the thought that there's wildebeest and zebra now on their way, and it's a good thing because the more that come through, you know, they start to think about crossing, and in the panic of crossing sometimes they try to go in and then they come back again, and the lions then have the opportunity to be able to hunt them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of all plays out. Unfortunately, like I say, the lions are just a little bit too visible. What they needed to do is get into the long grass sections in amongst these sort of areas. So you see there's little grassy kind of thickets. They need to get into those where they'll camouflage a lot better, otherwise they just get seen by the zebras and the wildebeest, and they then unfortunately will not get very much luck at all. Daniel, you say these are very brave zebra. Well, the distance that they're at now is way too far for these lions. These lions have no chance to get that close. But what happened earlier is that there's one zebra actually ran and got to about, I would say, maybe 20 meters from the lions before it actually realized that they were there. Luckily it saw probably the male. There's a young male that's out on the left side, and he's a lot more visible than the others, and I think it spotted that and realized very quickly, hang on a second, something's not right here, and so they stopped immediately. So that individual there, you can see, is a little bit more kind of exposed than what the others are. Gordon, do I think the lions will work together to take down all these zebra? Well, Gordon, the thing is with the lions is that they are not going to take down all these zebra. When they hunt, yes, they sometimes do get multiple kills, but for the most part, when lions hunt, they'll be only going after a single one that they've targeted within the grouping. And yes, they will work together though. So what you generally find is when lions are actually actively hunting, so these guys have just stumbled across, well, they've been lying here and the zebra and wildebeest have stumbled across them, but when they're actively hunting is that they'll try and kind of get into a position where they can chase animals back towards the others, and so that they kind of set up a trap, and then once they get kind of anchored, they can then grab it and you know, then kind of hold on, and then the others come and help bring it down. So yes, they will use one another. Right, now for now the zebras and the wildebeest have separated quite far from the lions. They've sort of moved back again, which is unfortunate. They were on the way here, but they've kind of noticed something's not quite right, and so they've stopped. So we're going to just carry on sitting here a little bit. We're going to say goodbye to all of you for now. If anything does happen and the lions do start to hunt, we will go live once again, but hopefully you enjoyed seeing the lions anyway, and seeing a little bit of Africa from Archie and myself. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you guys a little bit later. Right, so we're going to be patient. We'll see what happens here. We've got, you know, ability to kind of watch quite nicely what happens, and so we'll just be patient and see. In the meantime, back to Steve though.
Thanks, Tristan. I have no doubt your lions are probably feeling the temperature, and maybe they're still full after the remnants of the migration, but I'm very fortunate and happy this morning to have found my first Djuma elephants for some time. There's a small breeding herd in the thickets. It's so incredible how, with the change of the seasons, the leaves on all the trees, we almost didn't even see the elephant, and well, there's a whole herd here, hidden amongst the bushes. One of the reasons why it makes game viewing this time of year that much more difficult. If you can't see a breeding herd of elephants in the thickets, how are you supposed to find the smaller and less seen serval cats, leopards, all very well camouflaged in the green? Big grey giants, unless you know where they are, seemingly invisible as well. And they are enjoying any of the green grass that is coming forward, the fresh green leaves as well. This one's got a bit of a floppy left ear. Shame. Not moving very well, just very slowly moving in the shade there. Don't seem to even be feeding too deliberately. Head down, it's probably having a little bit of a nap. Sarah, well, I've seen lots of tracks and activity this morning, but this is the first herd we've come across. But like I said, they are probably just well hidden in the thickets that are now the dominant vegetation around Djuma at the moment. We went from desolation a few months ago to now very green, thick bushes. And this individual doesn't seem to be feeding, just having a little bit of a nap. Elephants will sleep on their feet. Just a bit of a cat nap as they stand up. Often you can tell by the lazy eye. The eye just sort of closes very gently. There we go. Nice and closed. Dreaming on your feet. Hard work being an elephant, moving around all day, feeding on an enormous amount of food, catching a few Z's whenever you can. So I counted at least 4 individuals in the small herd. It's possible there are more, but none of them are too active now. But normally if they were active, you'd hear the branches and the trees being pushed around and broken, or even just the characteristic pulling of grass roots from the soil. It's very quiet. Just the sounds of birds in the background. Franklins, Cameropteras, Prunias. Characteristic sounds of summer. Buttons, that's a very good question. Elephants don't generally sleep too much, flat out sleeping. They have been known to lie down. From time to time you find the tracks of elephants lying down, but they go through bouts of probably 20 minutes to half an hour at a time of a little bit of a snooze. But I've also seen elephants or heard elephants sleeping nearby me in my camp once for a good 2.5-3 hours. It was snoring. They don't have the same benefit that the ruminant animals have. Ruminants, when they sit down and chew the cud, are essentially meditating and resting their brain. Whereas elephants, zebra, rhino, hippopotamus have to physically sleep. But the exact number of hours is hard to say, because elephants are pretty much feeding all the time. They're constantly feeding all throughout the day. So they're probably feeding for 20 odd hours a day. So somewhere in between the 24-hour day and night, they have little bouts of sleeping. Sometime in the heat of the day, sometimes in the middle of the night. It really is very dependent. A little bit of dust bathing there. These sort of quiet periods, the whole herd just sort of regroups in the shade. Emma, you've still got half an hour of the show. You can't nap yet. Napping is for later. But anyway, we're going to leave this sleeping bunch of elephants to their shady respite, and on we go. You're doing a great job there, Marcel. Okay, on we go. Happy to see first Djuma elephants
for some time. No doubt we will see some more of them, but the rains are certainly needed. Oh, there's a baby lying down at that one's feet. I wonder if we can actually get through that gap there. Tell me when you got it. Marcel? There's an individual lying at the feet of its mother. That's very cool. You don't often get to see it. You can see the trunk is just delicately next to it. Two adults right there next to the trunk and the feet. Baby's lying flat out in the shade of mum. Well, there's a bit of a tree put in the shade, but quite often mum can be used as shade. When your mum weighs 4,000 tons, 4,000 kilograms, 5,000, big males, 6,000, produce a very nice shady spot. And everyone is enjoying seeing elephant lying down. As a youngster, about 3 or so, really hard to say. It's not tiny, it's not a baby, but very close to mum. Mum's trunk is just delicately sort of touching it. The feet, pillar-like legs. And there the elephant is flat out. So the very characteristic way of your non-ruminants of lying down is flat on their side. But they can't do it for very, very long. The discussion is that elephants have got so much weight that by lying down for too long, they put a lot of pressure on their lungs. So it's why they're able to stand up and sleep. Very strong pillar-like legs to support them. But it is more common to see youngsters lying down than adults, but don't ever let that fool you. I've found fully grown male elephants lying flat on the ground, and it is actually incredible how quickly they can get to their feet. It's a bit of an ask. They need to sort of counterweight themselves as they fling their body and head in one direction and then swing their body all the way up, getting onto their knees and then pushing themselves up again. Very sweet though. I remember months ago in the when we were doing the drone for the last series, how many times we found breeding herds of elephant with the drone completely flat, sleeping on the ground. It was quite easy to see because the thermal image could show you the full form of an elephant. And well, if you're looking from completely, right above, then you're not seeing the back of the elephant, you're seeing the full body. It was quite easy to see how they were all lying down, and obviously when they got up and moved a few meters, you could see the shape on the ground from where they left the warmth behind. Carol, yes, elephants do sleep against trees. They'll also lean against riverbanks or termite mounds. Anything that gives them a little bit more support. Termite mounds, nice sloping sort of arch or hill, makes it quite easy for them to get up again. So it's quite common to find tracks around termite mounds like that, and sometimes they'll just lean up against a tree. Sometimes they'll just stand straight where they are on 4 pillared legs, sometimes just resting one of those legs from time to time. Very nice, very peaceful scenes, but look how when Marcel pans out how they all just disappear. So difficult that if we can't see elephants from this distance, how would we be able to see anything else? But anyway, we're going to keep searching, keep seeing what we can find. And well, lions are happening in the Mara. Hopefully they're going to catch themselves some breakfast. It is Tristan's last morning up there, so hopefully he gets some action.
Well, hopefully you'll find something at some point. We're still sitting with a bunch of wildebeest that are slowly edging their way down to the river. They're not really there yet, and the build-up hasn't quite gotten big enough, I don't think, to force them down, but they are slowly moving towards the river. There's the river right there. The lions all popped their heads up and everybody saw them, and so there was mass panic, and the lions ended up just kind of flopping back down and sleeping, so they're not going to be hunting anytime soon just yet. You can also see in the distance the herd, so when I see the herd moving, if they move towards those lions, we can just quickly get back in that area. It's not far from where we are. It's probably about 300 meters away, so we'll head there if we need to be. But these are a different grouping. You can see they're kind of edging slowly, but like I say, it requires a bit more of a build-up, so it requires a lot more kind of pressure from behind, so more animals arriving, so another herd of zebras, and then you start to see the kind of almost the pushing and shoving that starts to take place, and the courage to then start dropping down towards the actual river itself, and to be able to cross and take on all these crocodiles and various other things. What I will tell you is that the crocodiles, I think, are well aware that there are wildebeest close by, because when we came around and looked in the river, all the crocodiles normally by now are sunbathing. They're kind of on the banks and they're taking it easy, whereas most of the crocodiles are in the water at the moment, and they're just all sitting at these kind of points and just looking around and kind of trolling up and down. So I wonder if they haven't heard these wildebeest coming and they've decided, well, we know what's going to eventually happen. Might take a while, but we'll sit here and wait in the hope that it does. And so it's the kind of patience game the crocodiles play, and it's generally is quite well rewarded. It will be rewarded today. These guys eventually will take the plunge. Like I said, I don't think now. I mean, I think it's going to take a lot longer than that. I think we're going to, unfortunately, not see them go over yet. It would have required all of those wildebeest and zebra that we've been seeing through the course of the morning to all have been here already by now and start to kind of force and push, and then you'll start to see them kind of going over. But there's just not enough at this stage to really have built up properly to get them to kind of mass cross. You can see a lot of them are lying down and fairly relaxed about things. There's the odd few that are kind of venturing towards the river and facing the river and looking at it, but there really isn't enough kind of pressure from behind to force them forward more and more and more until they get to the edge of the river and just take the leap. So I think maybe this afternoon only. Well, you never know with these things. They can cross now and then cross the river back again. They are funny things that way. Michael, I do. I actually spoke to the hyena researchers yesterday. They too have, much like us, had a really tough time of actually getting to the North Clan. So they said they haven't been to the den in a week, which is not nice. They said they tried yesterday and they almost got stuck, and they're in a tiny little vehicle in comparison to ours. So they just said to me, there's no ways you're going to be able to get there. I wanted to head there today, but there's just unfortunately too wet. But what's interesting is that they were saying to me that Soup is definitely showing signs of being quite kind of aggressive towards Waffles, and both Lobster and Chow, which is Soup's offspring, have also been kind of giving Waffles a hard time, and so they've been kind of biting Waffles and pulling her ears and really giving her a little bit more, and acting quite aggressive towards her. So it seems as though Soup is kind of in the process of taking over. And for those of you who don't know who kind of Soup and Waffles and all of this is it's a hyena clan, and Waffles is a matriarch, and she's got a really incredible story because she was a low-ranking individual within the clan, and she managed to accrue a group of females, enough females, that she was able to climb the ranks and become the matriarch essentially of the hyena clan, or the North Clan, and she's from there has had a whole bunch of offspring, mostly males. She did have a female called LCS, and LCS then had a daughter called Soup, and so Soup is her granddaughter essentially, so it's still a similar kind of bloodline, and she's now had cubs of her first set, which was Lobster and Chow, and she's a young hyena, so Soup is only they reckon about 4 years old, so she's quite young in comparison, and she's now starting to kind of take over because Waffles is getting old. So Waffles is just under 12 years old at the moment, which is very old for hyenas. Most hyenas in the wild will only live to about 12, 13, and so she's at that age where she is going to unfortunately get taken over. Now normally what would happen is it would be one of her offspring that would ascend and take over, but LCS has passed away, she's no longer around, and then all the others are boys, bar her current litter that she's got at the moment. So Waffles does have a current litter at the moment, which is 2, and one they think is a female, one they think is a male, and so hopefully she can just hang on and keep going for another year and to get get those little ones back up and running. But I don't think they're going to have a chance to take over with Soup now kind of established, and with Lobster and Chow also around. They're going to kind of come to their mom's aid, and they're going to really kind of be a force to be reckoned with. So it's a kind of interesting thing. Now, the reason why Waffles has mostly had males is probably to do with the fact that generally low-ranking individuals statistically produce male offspring, and the reason for that is that male offspring will not attract as much attention as female offspring within a clan system. So if you're a low ranker, the higher ranking individuals know that if you're a low ranker and you have lots and lots of females around you, then you're a threat, and they will bully those cubs and they will probably try and chase them out. But if you're a low ranker that has a lot of males, well, then you don't need to worry so much. You don't actually need to have too much kind of concern, because the males will distribute out or won't really be a threat to the kind of matriarch system. So it then allows those low rankers to live a far more peaceful life and not get beaten up nearly as much. And so it's a common trait that you see with low rankers, is that they produce more males than females, and that's probably why Waffles has produced so many males. High ranking individuals often produce a lot more females, so that they can produce a kind of system where they are protected by those younger ones. Carol, so yes, in some respects, the reason why I say that is because with Waffles and Soup, apparently what's been going on is there's been a lot of interaction between the two of them, and a lot of biting and carrying on, and a lot of kind of both of them have been going at each other, and it's now settling down to the point where neither of them are really looking like they're getting kind of too hammered. And with Waffles being as old as she is, it's far easier for her to just lead a peaceful life and allow kind of are you guys going to cross? Is this what's going to happen? Don't think so. But they are all kind of moving. There's Topi moving with them, there's zebras, there's wildebeest. What's triggered them all to run like this? I have absolutely zero idea. The problem is they're heading into a terrible place where we wouldn't be able to see the crossing if it did take place, because they would be going to an area where there isn't a road, which is not ideal. So hopefully they go further on and then go to Main South for GG this afternoon. That would be ideal, but there we go. Movement of wildebeest. So Waffles would now, given that she's got these young ones, would probably in all likelihood rather try and protect those as much as possible, and try and make sure that those little cubs are okay, rather than trying to fight with Soup and getting badly injured and then not being able to look after them. So, and Soup, while she will see, this is how clever wildebeest are. You see, they've just run into that thicket, and now they're all running out of the thicket again. Not smart, are they? I'm afraid. They're an incredible animal in terms of their abilities to move and to run and to cover distance, but their intelligence leaves a lot to be desired, and you can see by the fact that they just ran into a thicket and ran back out. Not the smartest of the animals out here, but lots and lots of zebras now coming as well. So slowly there's a bit of kind of build up that is taking place. They are going to cross today. It's just a matter of time. It's unfortunate, like I say, that I'm leaving today, because I would have otherwise spent the entire day here with them, but it's one of those things. Anyway, Michael, hopefully that's an update that you're looking for. One last thing I'm going to add to that update is that they were telling me that they saw Waffles yesterday morning on the fringe between Happy Zebra and North Clan territory, and she was on her own, which is very, very unusual, because generally low-ranking individuals on the outliers of the territory on their own is quite common. High-ranking individuals, not so much, and so you get a kind of thing. I wonder, are these guys going to go over? Let's just go and see. Position ourselves to see if they'll actually come down the bank. Sorry, Emma, I know you wanted me to send you to bushwalk, but they might actually start coming down, and if they do, it's going to be quite cool, because there are lots and lots of crocodiles in the wait. Right, so that's where they would come down, is down like this and then through and up onto the other side, and all the crocs are starting to mobilize into the water now. It's almost as if they know there is some sort of build up happening. So there's the ones you see, look, they're starting to turn and actually come into the water itself. So a lot of the crocs have probably heard the thundering of hooves, and they're expecting now this crossing to take place, and so they're all going to slide back into the water to be able to start moving up. There you go, you see, they're starting to come up the river now to the point where they know that the wildebeest often cross, and they're going to then sit there in the hope that this is going to take place. So the crocs are prepping as well, which is going to be very, very interesting. Right, we're going to wait a little bit. The wildebeest haven't quite got to the edge yet. They haven't started moving down, so we'll wait a little bit. In the meantime, they'll send you back to bushwalk, and we'll call you back if anything starts to happen. Apparently we're not going to link, apparently. Now I mustn't send you to bushwalk anymore. Right, well, Emma, you can, I suppose, get an action broadcast or unscheduled broadcast prepped, because if they do get any closer, they might actually start going, which will be quite cool. They are starting to slowly come down to the sort of water edge. There's a hippo that's busy snorting. Right, you lot, come, down you go. The thing with this is it just takes 2 or 3 of them just to start bolting down into the river, and then it's a mass kind of thing. It's, as you saw when they started running just now, everybody starts doing it as soon as they kind of build up a little bit. But it's, I mean, it won't be a long crossing, this, it'll be a quick kind of thing. And you know, it's amazing that when you get to the kind of end of the season, you kind of get excited about a crossing like this, but then in season this is not even considered anything major. There's normally, you know, tens of thousands of them when you have these big ones. Pamela, how many crocodiles are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 that I can see, and I mean that's not even really counting properly. That's just ones that I can see kind of quite quickly from here. So a lot is the answer to that, and some very big ones too, which means that I'm pretty sure if these guys do take the plunge, there's going to be a murder that's going to take place. So if you are kind of squeamish and they do start going, probably a good thing to look away. Crossings are a strange thing, you know, people come from all over to come see them, basically to watch animals being murdered, which is a weird situation in many respects. But it is incredible to watch how crocs go about it and how the wildebeest and zebra go about kind of having to negotiate this river. It's a tricky thing for them, but ultimately they have to do it to kind of, it's part of their life, and so it's going to be interesting. Now I see there's a whole bunch of wildebeest on the other side of the river. I wonder if they went over somewhere already, those wildebeest, because they're all running on the other side of the river and kind of away from the river. So interesting. Anyway, we'll see. These guys slowly edging forward. Come on, down you come. It'd be quite nice if there's a crossing here, just from a point of view that it'll be multiple species. So it's going to be wildebeest, topi and zebra that are all here at the moment. So 3 different species that will try and kind of go across. Okay, well, we'll wait, we'll see what happens. The crocs are all in position, the wildebeest are in position and primed and ready to go, and so in the meantime let's send you back across to Steve and see what he's busy with.
Thanks, Tristan. I hope you managed to get that crossing just before the end of the show. Last minute crossing will be awesome. I just saw a very nice family of birds over here. I'm going to see if I can call them out for you. They're just up in the tree over here. Blackbirds. Marcel, you might be able to get one of them there. They're a group of birds. Let me call them. I'm just going to call them once just to get them to come and say hello. Now, one of my favorite birds. The coloration is really interesting. Let's have a listen, shall we? The Ariba bird. Sounds like they're going Ariba, Ariba. They're calling back, Marcel. You can see them in the back there. Nice black birds. There's the Retz's helmet shrike. I don't know who Mr. Retz was, but they are a cooperative breeder. Nice small little groups. They're just flown out of the tree there. They obviously didn't like my territorial call. But let me show you a picture of them. They are probably one of the coolest looking birds around. See how you do here, Marcel. Right up onto the dashboard. Oopsie. There we go. And you see the black. Oh, that's my reflection. Sorry about that. We're going to practice this again. You see the red beak, and they've got a beautiful red wattle around the eye. Overall black in general, with some white on the underwing and on the rump. A very, very special bird. And when I say cooperative breeder, they accumulate into a small family, and you'll have an alpha male and female that will do the breeding, and the rest will assist in territory defense and also in providing food for the chicks. Part of the shrike family, helmet shrike. You can see the tip of the beak is quite sharp and hooked there. Button is a very cute bird. Very, very cute bird indeed. Okay, Marcel, we're going to come out of this. Very nice. Nice to see the Rhett's helmet shrike. They're very common in the area. They feed high up in the canopy. Their rival or counterpart would be the white-crested helmet shrike, and they feed from the ground up to sort of middle canopy, and the Rhett's are always in the top. So that's how they separate themselves on a food partitioning sort of point of view. Feeding a lot of insects, caterpillars and the like that are proliferating in the trees as we speak. After the rains, all of the eggs of insects are hatching, and a very, very nice time of year for feeding, hence why a lot of the birds are breeding now, and a lot of our migrants have come down for the insects. We all might go, ooh, but I'm not far away. I think China's already doing it, already making insect burgers and insect bars, because that is where the food resource is going to be going, and Sydney knows all about it. He enjoys his insects as a food resource and as a point of discussion. Let's go say goodbye to him.
Look at that. This is quite a beautiful lion eye flower. You can see that this is having like an eye, orange eye in the middle, the yellow eye in the middle. And look at all these stars. And this is a pretty flower. And this is what attracts those kind of insects to come here. And this, I think, is going to be my last presentation. I will be with you again next time on this guided walk. So hopefully we might come across something interesting before we finish. And thank you very much for all your questions. I didn't copy that comment from Amber. Now, indeed, it is such a very pretty flower to end with for the guided walk this morning, and hopefully we'll find more flowers when I come back again. So now let's go to Tristan with the wildebeest. Unfortunately, wildebeest don't eat flowers.
Indeed, we are with the wildebeest, and they're slowly edging closer, but still got a long way to go until they actually dive into the water. They've kind of gotten close-ish, but I think they're still quite nervous of actually getting in and taking the plunge, and I would be too if I saw how many crocodiles were in this water. I would also not want to go running in and going in there at all. But you can see, look, there's all the heads of them at the moment, all in perfect waiting formation. So as those wildebeest would come over, those guys are just going to go to town. There's another one that's maybe a little bit too far up, but I suppose with the crocs, they don't know how many wildebeest exactly are coming down to the sort of water's edge, and so they've spread themselves out a bit in the hope that they'll all be able to kind of get something. But crocs are definitely in wait. They've realized that there is a crossing going to happen, and so they are looking very happy about life. I would imagine that this will be one of the last kind of few that they'll get for a while, and so might as well make hay while the sun shines, as they say, and try and get themselves a meal. But you can see the kind of wildebeest are now backing off again. They've decided, no, not time to cross yet. And this is what happens as they go down and up and down and up. And what normally happens in the height of the migration, they generally have a lot more of them, and so it gets kind of too cluttered for them to actually turn back, and so they then have to just keep edging down towards the water's edge. Now, Wendy, why would they be crossing at this time of the year? Well, it's quite simple, is that the rains have arrived and there's grazing areas that they want to get to that have nutritious grass, and to get to that they need to go over and the river and towards the areas that they know is going to house that better quality grazing than they can potentially get here. The grass also gets quite long here, and they prefer to kind of carry on towards shorter grass areas. So you'll find that they're going to cross back and forth. I mean, sometimes in the migration you'll have the same herd will cross the river 3 times in one day, which is crazy to think, but they do. They sometimes will cross it and then a few hours later they're back coming the other way. It's all just to do with grazing more than anything else. This time of year though, they all start to leave to go up to, like I say, the conservancy areas where there's a better quality of grass and also where they can go and calf. Most of these wildebeest will be pregnant and will be giving birth around, they should be giving birth around sort of February. It's normally around February, March is the calving season, particularly for the main grouping that goes down to the Serengeti. They go down to a place called Ndutu, where they will then give birth down there and then kind of come back here once those little ones have grown up a bit. Whereas these guys, I'm pretty sure, like I say, it's part of what's known as the Loiter migration, which used to migrate all the way up towards Nairobi, but there's too many people in the way now, so they will unfortunately be blocked, and so they can only go so far. But this is which ones they are. Christina, you say they're all saying don't want to be first. Yes, I wouldn't want to be first in here either. The first one in here is probably not going to do very well. In all likelihood will battle to get across, as well as the second and third, and then once from there it kind of gets a little bit easier. I think, once the crocs have grabbed 1 or 2, then the attention is away and they can get kind of through. So we'll see. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to go now. I think they're going to mill about for most of the day until there's just more zebras and more wildebeest that arrive. Once that starts to happen, then maybe we'll start to see them going over. And unfortunately, I was hoping that they were going to go over now, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're still too nervous of all the crocs that are inside the water. And the thing is what would actually be ideal is if the lions came from behind, because then they would have motivation from behind to get across. But the lions seem as though they were very kind of happy just to take a bit of a nap. Maybe they got one of these guys already during the course of the day. But it is that time, unfortunately, where we're going to start thinking about saying goodbye. If anything does happen, I'll stick around for a bit. If anything does happen, then we'll go live. Unfortunately, I can't stay too long because I've got to get back and pack up and get everything sorted to be able to leave this afternoon, which is going to be nice. It's going to be nice to have a bit of a break and be back in Djuma in the new year. But from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure this morning. I hope that every single one of you have a good holiday season wherever you are in the world, and whatever you celebrate. I hope that it's just a good time with family and friends, and we'll see you guys pretty much all next year, but the rest of us will see you this afternoon for the sunset safari.